by human activity, which has continued at pace in converting so much of the natural world, whether this has been through construction, but actually largely the way in which we're changing the natural world in terms of converting land for food and for agriculture. Importantly, world leaders have been missing in action despite dire warnings over repeated years, and we need them to step forward and put in place an action plan before it is too late.
She says there is a very, very short window for action, and while conceding that the war in Ukraine and other international developments are siphoning away the attention of many world leaders, she says the evidence of the impacts of climate change themselves speak volumes about the need to give the issue immediate focus. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
FSN is an independent source of news for TV, radio and digital networks worldwide. You can find more of our minute-by-minute updates on Twitter. Follow us there at Feature Story. And we have a wealth of audio and video stories from our global news bureaus on Facebook. You can find us there by following Feature Story News. Stay tuned for further updates right here. But for now, that's the latest Feature Story News. William Denzelo reporting.
A report released Tuesday by physicists at Stanford University revealed that the entire known universe, from the whole of human civilization to the totality of matter and energy, is actually the fictional setting of a cop show called Hard Case. According to authors of the report, existence as we know it was created solely to provide the framework for the primetime drama that airs weekly in a parallel universe, and that every historical event prior to the show's September 2008 pilot, including the Renaissance, World War II, evolution, the September 11th attacks, and the presidential administrations of Washington through Clinton, never actually happened and are merely part of the elaborate backstory crafted by Hard Case creator and showrunner Dominic Egan.
We used to believe that our universe operated under immutable laws of thermodynamics and gravitational relativity, but now we know everything just comes from the minds of Hard Case's 12 staff writers. Overall, it seems like a very well-written show.
Physicists have theorized that the universe as we know it will cease to exist whenever Hard Case airs its final episode.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live. Hey, it's Free Talk Live. Welcome to the program. The phone for you, if you want to join us here, 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Joining you tonight, it's Ian.
And Bonnie.
And we are expecting Chris here in a few moments. He stayed late at one of our local meetups that we have here in Keene on Friday nights. It's been a busy last 48 hours here in Keene. We've had a lot of foreign media, if you will, in town. There's a couple of German reporters who are here reporting on things like the crypto scene and the Free State Project. There's also a documentary crew that's here from Free State Documentary at freestatedoc.com. They've been doing fundraising to put together a full feature-length documentary film about the Free State Project, which would be awesome. I hope that it comes to fruition. I'm definitely a supporter of what they're trying to do, and they seem to be like friendly people. One of the producers, the director, I guess, if you will, she is somebody who put a documentary together for the Mises Caucus, the Libertarian Party Mises Caucus. So she seems to be a friendly as far as her viewpoints are concerned. But whether or not it turns out that way, I'm happy to see more coverage. Like the more people that are covering what's going on here in New Hampshire, whether they be foreign media, local documentary people, local media, national media. The fact is, New Hampshire's libertarian movement, the Free State Project, the people that are moving here, and not everybody joins the Free State Project, but it's one of the more sort of noteworthy organizations. Whatever we're talking about, the libertarians in New Hampshire, we get way more press coverage than any libertarian group anywhere. I would say even more so than the National Libertarian Party gets.
Well, I would say that sorry, I was just going to say I don't think it would be negative because the trailer isn't negative.
No, the trailer is incredibly positive.
And if you go to freestatedoc.com, you can watch that.
Correct, and you can contribute to the documentary being filmed and continuing and finishing it and all that. But if you look at the publicity that the National Libertarian Party gets, they really don't get that much. I mean, during the presidential campaign, sure. the presidential candidate will get an interview here and there, and we'll get some coverage from various different sources just by virtue of the fact that they are in the presidential race and they're the Libertarian candidate.
And they get a lot less attention than the Republican and Democrats, though.
Of course, barely any by comparison.
Yeah.
But as far as the Libertarian Party is concerned, if it's not a presidential year, they basically don't exist as far as press coverage is concerned. State Libertarian parties basically don't exist as far as press coverage is concerned. So if you're looking for a libertarian movement where there's actually fire and smoke, there's something happening here worth reporting on, New Hampshire is that place. And so the fact that we have like two sets of film, like one film crew and one radio crew in town, completely separate of one another. They just happen to run into one another tonight at a meetup.
And another interesting thing about it is one is covering the Free State in general, and one is covering cryptocurrency in New Hampshire.
Correct. So it's just another day here in New Hampshire with massive media appeal. Another guy that knows a thing or two about media is Elliot. He's on the line with us here from the Liberty Block. Hey, good evening.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
What's on your mind?
So, as you were saying, New Hampshire has the best liberty movement, and obviously I agree the New Hampshire Libertarian Party gets the most publicity, the most action by far. We also have tons of liberty activists and writers. I think we have like 20 or 30 authors who have written books.
Wow.
Just liberty people in New Hampshire. Obviously, I'm one of them. I just published my book. I don't think I told you guys yet. Taxation is Theft. It's not breaking news to you guys because you're smart, but taxation is theft. And that's the title of the book, but it's got tons of stuff about the history of taxation, the tricks they use to tax us more, obviously the secret tax, which you guys know what it is. It's inflation and printing, but also how we can abolish taxation using various programs and means that we're already using. We just got to do it more, and we can abolish taxation. So that book I just published, it's on sale. It's like 99 cents on Kindle, and I think it's free if you have Prime.
Wow.
But it's $8 for the paperback, so it's pretty much no profit for me, but it's on sale until probably for the weekend, until Monday. So everyone should pick it up and read it, and let me know what you think and leave a review.
So is this something you would want to buy, like a family member, to kind of introduce them to some of these ideas?
Like a primer?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's good, obviously, for libertarians and monetarists, but it is good for centrists and moderates and apolitical people because it does explain one of the chapters attacks the morality and explains why extortion is not moral at all. It explains it from a lot of angles, and the philosophy of it, the morality, the ethics, and all that stuff. So it kind of covers everything. So it covers pretty much everything. So I do think for a newbie, for a muggle, it would be pretty good as well.
Yeah, taxation is theft is definitely more alliterative than taxation is extortion, but it is probably more accurate to say that it is actually extortion rather than theft because it's a threat that they're going to hurt you if you don't do a thing, not like just a quiet stealing of something.
Yeah, I agree. Although one of the chapters is civil asset forfeiture, which is literally like armed robbery in some cases.
And also when they take things out of your bank account, I mean, that's just theft. I mean, sorry, not your bank account, but when they take stuff out of your paycheck and you have no recourse, all you can do is keep working the job or not have a job. It's theft.
And then inflation, the increasing of the money supply is also a form of theft because then they're stealing the value. So you don't see your bank account doesn't go down in the amount of dollars, but it goes down in its purchasing power. And that's what they're doing to us right now.
And I'm actually looking for someone to help with the audiobook. I know Bonnie's already doing Presumed Guilty, but if anybody here wants to do the audiobook, I'm happy to give high royalty for the audiobook if anybody wants to help with taxation and stuff.
I think you should contact Captain Kickass. He might do that.
Ooh, yeah.
He's got his own audio studio in his house. Probably be faster than me because there's not, construction on his house.
He's a busy guy, though. I don't know. We can't guarantee what he's going to say, but it wouldn't hurt to ask him.
So in other news, I am debating again against democracy because I do think that is the worst form of government, period. Not except for all the others. Like Churchill said, I think democracy is pretty much the worst form. So I'm debating next Wednesday on the 26th at
Where?
Oh, 7 p.m. I guess.
Against you.
7 p.m. I believe.
Yeah, who's your opponent?
Libertarian, a free stater who moved from New York recently, very, very smart guy, named Max Sklar.
Oh, yeah.
Podcast.
Yeah, we met him at the Liberty Forum. He does like a tech podcast.
Yes, I think so. And the name of it is a pun that I don't even understand because that's how much smarter than me he is.
Well, that's interesting. That'll be a really good debate. Have you ever found anyone to debate you on independence since the one you did like a year ago?
Nope.
Yeah.
I'm still looking for someone, ideally a legislator. So if anyone out there is willing to debate me, I would love to. I think Mikey has mentioned that he would consider it. I don't know, how serious he is. And I asked about that, but they don't want to do that in the show because they already did it a few months ago. But I would love to debate someone at Liberty Forum and or PorcFest. I'm always open to debate. So if you guys could find anyone, I want the best of the best. I want to fight the best. So let me know whoever you think is the best debater.
Awesome. Anything else you want to share with our audience tonight, Elliot?
I think that's all for now.
All right, man. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. The guy he's talking about, Max Sklar, he hosts a show called The Local Maximum. And we met him at Liberty Forum. We were just talking about Liberty Forum today, actually, and with some of the media that is here in town. So if you want to join the show, it's 603-283-6160. For those that don't know, the Liberty Forum is the Free State Project's yearly convention. So you probably have heard us talk about the Porcupine Freedom Festival a lot. We don't talk about the Liberty Forum as much. It's not as large of an event, but it is. Last year it was a sold-out event. They couldn't sell any other tickets, so I don't know if it's going to go to a new venue this next year or if they're going to keep it in the same place.
It's still really fun. It's similar to PorcFest without the camping because you can stay at a hotel instead. It's just 2 nights, and there's less people, but it still feels like a lot of people because really you're going to talk to more people, but you're more likely to talk to probably more people than just in a day in PorcFest because it's like you get stuck talking to someone at PorcFest for a while because you haven't seen them since last year. But these are like table, you're going to the next table. Like I feel like I've met more people than I've ever met in my life at Liberty Forum. Like all the time I'm like, I know that person from somewhere. And then I ask you, and we met him at Liberty Forum.
If you want to join the show tonight, the number is 603-283-6160. There's some interesting stories in the news we're going to share with you, including what I consider to be good news. More soldiers, according to Fox 5 in New York, more soldiers are leaving the Army National Guard at a faster rate than they are enlisting.
That's good.
People are saying goodbye to the National Guard, and not as many people are signing up to replace them.
I wonder if that's the only our branch that is like that.
Good question. The number here is 603-283-6160. You can also weigh in here. We'll check in with what Elon Musk is threatening to do to the Ukrainian government coming up.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
Inflation, a sidelined labor force, and ever-increasing interest rates. It's the perfect storm for pushing the U.S. economy over the edge. Savvy investors are diversifying into gold and silver with BullionMax.com. You can buy direct from BullionMax.com without talking to a salesperson, and your precious metals will ship fully insured directly to your home. Free Talk Live listeners can now order one of BullionMax's most popular products, the Goldback. Now in stock, but supplies are going fast. To get your Goldbacks, go to BullionMax.com/FTL.
There are basically 2 types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Hey, you are going to love the movie Victimless Crime Spree. It's hilarious, heartwarming, and carries a ton of inspiring freedom messages. Feeling down about the lack of liberty in your life? You need to put on this film with some friends and have a good laugh. It's a true story about me and my friends in New Hampshire living free, singing, dancing, and getting arrested. Of course, it's all on video, and the bad guys, the cops, judges, bailiffs, and sheriffs, they all play their part like it's out of a movie or something. You would think we scripted the whole thing, but it's real life. Go ahead and have a watch, and if it's been a while, have another look. I guarantee you'll notice things now that you didn't notice before. And the best part is that you're going to walk away feeling a renewed sense of your own power. You are the master of your destiny, and you will be free in your lifetime. Victimless Crime Spree.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com. Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, and you can join the show here. The number is 603-283-6160. You can bring up anything you want to discuss. Phones are open. 603-283-6160. Here tonight, it's Ian.
And Bonnie.
And don't forget, you can join us online anytime you want. Just jump on over to freetalklive.com, and you can go to Bullion Max to get your various different gold and silver products, including the gold backs, which are absolutely amazing products. They're beautiful, interchangeable gold money that you can actually carry in your wallet, and I do. I have gold backs wherever I go. I actually get to use them in real life at local businesses here in the Keene area. They're hugely popular amongst the Freedom community, and we're starting to see them getting picked up at local mom-and-pop businesses as well, which is amazing because it's gold that's intended to be spent. Now, of course, if you want to get gold and silver products that you want to sock away in a safe or bury in an underground, bunker or whatever, Bullion Max can help you with all that stuff too. So they've got everything that you're looking for. Just go to bullionmax.com/FTL. That'll take you right to their gold backs page, but of course you can access the whole site from there as well. That's bullionmax.com/FTL. You can buy direct from Bullion Max without talking to a salesperson, and your precious metals will ship fully insured directly to your home. It's bullionmax.com/FTL. So coming up, we'll get into what is going on with Elon Musk and the Starlink internet service. If you remember, Bonnie, at the very beginning of the Ukraine-Russia conflict, Elon Musk made headlines for sending them free Starlinks.
Yeah, I remember that.
It's becoming an issue now. And we'll explain why that is in just a moment. But first, some of the good news is that soldiers are leaving the Army National Guard, according to the AP.
So is the Army National Guard different than just the National Guard? Because I've heard of that.
That's a darn good question, Bonnie, and I have no idea. That's an excellent question. If you
I know that the Army National Guard gets deployed even now, but the National Guard only gets deployed in specific instances, so they might be different.
I don't know. Yeah, is that the same thing as the State Guard? Is that a division of the Army National Guard? These are military questions that I don't know the answer to, but if you guys know them, feel free to weigh in here at 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. So, but the good news is there are fewer people joining that organization than there are leaving it. According to the story here, soldiers are leaving at a faster rate than enlisting, fueling concerns that in the coming years, units around the country may not meet military requirements for overseas and other deployments, which is great news, because there's the whole Defend the Guard thing that we talked about recently here on Free Talk Live, which is a movement of activists trying to stop the National Guard from being, or the State Guard, I presume they're the same thing. We'll presume that for the purpose of this story, trying to stop them from being deployed in war, in these conflicts.
Congress officially declares war, which they haven't since World War II, I think?
That's correct.
Or World War I?
World War II.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It says here, for individual states which rely on their Guard members for a wide range of missions, it means some are falling short of their troop totals this year, while others may fare better. But the losses come as many are facing an active hurricane season, fires in the West, and continued demand for units overseas, including combat tours in Syria and training missions in Europe for nations worried about threats from Russia. According to officials, the number of soldiers retiring or leaving the Guard each month in the past year has exceeded those coming in, for an annual loss of about 7,500 service members. The problem is a combination of recruiting shortfalls and an increase in the number of soldiers who are opting not to re-enlist when their tour is up. And this is good news, because it means that people who otherwise would have joined this organization are just doing other more productive things with their lives. Yep. They've got enough going on in their life, and they're saying to themselves, you know what, I don't need the extra hassle. I don't need whatever the paycheck would be. I don't need to spend my time on this. It's just not worth being bossed around and ordered around, being told what to do.
Or on the black pill side, it could just be that people are getting good enough welfare for doing no work that they don't want to do the work-flavored welfare of the military anymore.
Could be. The losses reflect a broader personnel predicament across the U.S. military. Okay, so here's the answer to your question, Bonnie. As all of the armed services struggled this year to meet recruiting goals, as they underscore the need for sweeping reforms in how the military recruits and retains citizen soldiers and airmen who must juggle their regular full-time jobs with their military duties. Now, of course, that has to do with the Guard, but it's saying here all armed services are struggling. And that's not necessarily a new thing. I remember back, 10, 15 years ago, probably closer to 15 years ago, there were stories in the news about how the Army, for instance, was lowering its standards. So they were making it so people with like tattoos and body piercings or whatever could come into the military, whereas they weren't allowed to before, or something like that. I mean, it might not have been tattoos, but that's one example. Or they would make it so that if you'd been a marijuana smoker in the past and you admitted to that, like you previously wouldn't have been allowed in, but now they might let you in. So they kind of lowered their standards, maybe let people in who are a little chubbier or something like that into the military, because it was getting harder for them to find people who are willing to go and, in that case, die in Iraq and Afghanistan. So this it sounds like they're still having the recruiting difficulties, and maybe it's, I'm hoping it's even worse now than it's ever been.
I hope so, too.
And you come from a military family.
Yep, I do. And my little brother's in the Air Force, and he didn't take the shot, but they've just been slowly deciding if they're going to kick him out or not.
Yeah, initially they had said they were definitely going to kick him out, but now it's been more than a year, I think, since he refused it, right?
It does. Do you think it's been more than a year? I'm not actually sure, but it feels like at least more than a year. And he put in a religious exemption form, and after months and months, it got denied. But nothing has happened since then. They're just still having him work.
Bureaucracy.
Yep. Bureaucracy.
The gears turn very slowly. Major General Rich Baldwin, Chief of Staff, the Army National Guard, said the current staffing challenges are the worst he's seen in the last 20 years. So far, the impact on the Guard readiness, he says, is minimal and manageable. But however, if we don't solve the recruiting and retention challenges we're currently facing, we'll see readiness issues related to strength begin to emerge within our units within the next year or two.
And don't freak out that we're going to be unsafe soon, because that by readiness, they just mean readiness to leave and start conflicts abroad.
Right,
they don't
kill
mean
people overseas.
We definitely have enough people here to defend the United States without the military, standards that they have now.
You could abolish the military entirely, and the U.S. would be able to, at least New Hampshire would be able to defend itself. We've got more machine guns per capita here than any other state. It's interesting, some of the tactics that they're starting to use to try to recruit people into the military. Bonnie, you and we saw something on social media last night where they have now hired apparently an e-girl to start making TikTok videos. I think her name's Luhan. I forget the exact name of the channel.
I think that's her last name.
Yeah, I could pull up the channel name here. But she's your typical e-girl. She's like...
But it was unclear if they hired her to be an e-girl or she's just voluntarily putting these videos on TikTok about being a soldier. But either way, it's really cringe.
I think she was already an e-girl, and then she joined the military when she, turned 18 or whatever. And so they've essentially recruited her into the psychological operations area. So she's with the that division. There's more coming up here. It's Free Talk Live. On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm William Denslow. President Vladimir Putin says there's no longer a need for massive strikes on Ukraine. Russia has launched a series of attacks on a number of cities over recent days. Putin now says the country has other tasks. Russia, meanwhile, is warning it wants to revise a landmark deal between Turkey, the United Nations and Ukraine that's meant to ensure the possibility of exports through the Black Sea. Moscow says the agreement, which it hailed at the time as a success, is not equal and not being fairly implemented by all sides. Stuart Smith has more from Moscow.
The deal needs to be renewed in mid-November by all parties, but Russia says it has two main complaints: that guarantees to Moscow that were meant to make exporting its grain and fertilizer easier are not enough. There aren't any direct sanctions against Russian grain and fertilizer exports, but Moscow claims other sanctions on shipping insurance and financial transactions are causing issues. The Russian president also claims the grain sent from Ukraine is not, to a large enough extent, going to the world's most underdeveloped countries, a complaint Turkey's president on Thursday said he agreed with and would seek to change ahead of renewal. The Kremlin says it submitted its concerns to the United Nations.
The UK Prime Minister Liz Truss has defended her position after her credibility was questioned by journalists at a press conference in Downing Street. Truss sacked her Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng and U-turned on a decision to cut taxes after facing mounting criticism from MPs. Laura Macon-Isherwood has more from London.
On Friday, she recalled her Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng from a meeting in the United States and removed him from his post after facing repeated criticism over their mini-budget tax-cutting plans. In a televised address, Liz Truss said she had acted decisively and that she wants to deliver a high-growth economy. Jeremy Hunt, a well-known MP with significant government experience, now becomes the new Chancellor, a man Truss claims shares her ambitions for the country.
The UN World Food Programme is warning Haiti is facing a humanitarian catastrophe. Close to 5 million people, that's almost half of the Haitian population, are facing hunger. Jody Jacobs has more from UN headquarters in New York.
Malnutrition, gang violence and a cholera outbreak. And it's getting worse. The UN's World Food Programme says about 19,000 people in Port-au-Prince alone are facing catastrophic hunger. And the situation in all of Haiti, it says, is close to breaking point. Haitian gangs have for a month prevented the distribution of diesel and gasoline. This has resulted in crippling businesses and hospitals.
And South Korea is imposing its first unilateral sanctions against North Korea in 5 years, in response to ongoing missile tests. It comes as Pyongyang fired another missile into the Sea of Japan on Friday morning. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. You can join the show here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Here in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
And Chris.
And Chris is now replacing Bonnie. She was sitting in for you as you were at a meetup that we had here in town.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Yeah, that went a little on the long side, so glad to have you here. Chris is the host of Freedom Decrypted, which you can find over at freedomdecrypted.com every single week. Although you took a couple weeks off recently.
We did. That was super unusual.
You've been busy.
Very busy. Yeah. Otherwise, it would have continued on as usual. But
celebrating what, 5 years now doing that?
Yeah,
show?
yeah, It was. I'm shocked that I've been doing it that long.
I know.
It doesn't. It sort of. I don't know if it doesn't feel that long. I feel like I've been doing this show, Free Talk Live, for 5 years, but I think this one has been doing 6 years, and that one I've been doing 5.
Okay.
So,
well, check them out over at freedomdecrypted.com if you like tech. And you love liberty, you're going to like the Freedom Decrypted. So check him out. There's a video version, there's a podcast, audio, etc., all for free at freedomdecrypted.com. We're going to continue here with the story, which is about the good news that there's apparently an annual loss now, about 7,500 National Guardsmen. They're not able to get as many people to sign up for the National Guard as they are the number of people leaving. So it's a negative rate. There's people leaving in fairly large numbers, and they're having trouble doing the recruiting. And apparently it's not just the National Guard. According to the story at the Associated Press, it's every branch of the military is having similar recruiting difficulties.
I mean, you'd think it would be a challenge with all the wars, the nonstop wars.
Yeah, I would hope it is a challenge.
And then, of course, now there's Ukraine. Who knows what's going to happen with that?
Right, that could get worse at the drop of a hat. Could be the next week that American troops are forced to go into that battlefield, which is terrifying. To go up against Russia in a potentially nuclear-level conflict. So who wants to join? I mean, why would you want to join the military? To fight for politicians who are historically lying to you, historically have not just lied to people, but lied to people to get into war specifically, using weapons of mass destruction in the case of Iraq, for instance, which of course turned out to be completely false. You go back to the Gulf of Tonkin in the Vietnam War, for instance. There have been other false flags.
It seems like every war that gets started, starts with a false flag.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's Ukraine or what was it? We were just in Iraq. That was another one. Who knows about the Afghanistan?
Well, don't they say that the first casualty in war is the truth?
Yeah.
I mean, you see what's happening in Ukraine. We don't know what's happening in Ukraine because all we can do is take whatever the reports are at face value, compare the various different reports, and try to extrapolate some sort of idea of semblance of what might be happening there. We have no clue. I don't think you would even know if you were in Ukraine what is happening, because you can't trust the Ukrainian military and the Ukrainian media. You can't trust the Western media, and you probably can't trust the Russian media either.
Yeah, and you can't. The one thing you definitely can't trust are either of the governments.
Exactly.
The Ukrainians are going to lie to you to keep you in the country, or not even lie to you, just use violence against you if you try to leave, especially if you're a man. And Russia is doing the same thing.
So I don't know if there's much more to say here. I mean, we've got the general gist of it. The story goes on, and I will post it on our social media over at social.freetalklive.com, where you can interact with other Free Talk Live listeners and some of the hosts of the show. So be sure you drop on over to social.freetalklive.com. And don't forget, Free Talk Live is brought to you by Bitcoin.com. So if you're ready to start learning about cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, we were just at a crypto meetup tonight. We were helping an older gentleman who needed some assistance. He had actually purchased some Bitcoin several years ago, it looked like. And he, elderly folks, sometimes they need their hand held a little bit more than younger people. And so we kind of helped him through how to access his wallet and things like that. You got to learn the basics of this stuff first. It's really important to get these ideas down, and one way you can do that is by going to bitcoin.com and clicking Get Started at the top of the page. You'll find some introductory info, some videos that you can watch at your leisure. At the very bare minimum, spend 3 minutes and watch that first video, and you'll get some new concepts handled. You'll be able to explain what makes cryptocurrency different from the old government monies that we've been saddled with for so long. But you really, before you get into actually buying things like Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, you really ought to know some stuff about it. So go to Bitcoin.com and click Get Started right there at the top of the page. So in other news here, Chris, we talked about the military having difficulty in recruiting. Since you mentioned Ukraine, you may recall that at the very beginning of the Ukraine-Russian conflict, that Elon Musk made some headlines by sending Starlink hardware into Ukraine. And the people that were in favor of Ukraine, which of course is, a lot of people on the left, a lot of big government people, seem to really love the whole Ukraine side, even though they're not pro-democracy. They took away the ability for the opposition party to even get on the ballot in Ukraine. They're banning the Russian language in certain circumstances in Ukraine. They're prohibiting people who are, I think, men over or under the age of 60 from leaving Ukraine. So these are people who are not concerned with freedom. They're concerned with power, and so are the Russians, mind you. But Ukraine isn't any better in my mind. But Musk got a lot of positive press, right, for sending this free hardware over there, free Starlinks for anybody that needs them in Ukraine. Well, now there's a development with these free Starlinks, because there is no such thing as a free lunch, right? According to the Washington Post, Elon Musk said today that his space company could not continue funding the Starlink satellite service that has kept Ukraine and its military online during the war, sparking an uproar as he suggested he was pulling free internet after a Ukrainian ambassador insulted him on Twitter.
Oh, that was not a good move.
A Starlink cutoff would cripple the Ukrainian military's main mode of communication and potentially hamstring its defenses by giving a major advantage to Russia, which has sought to jam signals and phone service in the eastern and southern combat zones. So Musk said, "He who can giveth can taketh away." And what obligation does he have to continue providing free service to the Ukrainian military?
Yeah, there's when you get free stuff, there's a cost to it sometimes, and in this case, it's keeping your mouth shut.
Yeah, you don't bite the hand that feeds you, right? I presume the reason why he was insulted, and I presume they're going to get into it in the story, but as you may know, Elon Musk made a proposal maybe a week ago that he said, "Hey, look, we can have peace in this conflict. Here's what he thinks needs to happen in order for peace to be reached." And he laid out 4 points. I don't have them in front of me right now. But one of those points was that the areas of Ukraine that had recently voted in what was called a sham election, he said they should be allowed to vote again. All right, fine. It was a sham election, right? Let's throw that election out. But bring in the United Nations. They have like a division to oversee elections to make sure that they're quote unquote on the up and up or whatever. Bring in the United Nations. Make sure that we're going to have another election, or we'll have another referendum is what they call it. So we'll have another referendum, another vote in these areas, and they will decide whether or not they want to join Russia, and it'll all be done under whatever the UN standards are. That way no one can say it's a sham election. That was one of the points that Elon Musk made, and that just set these people, these Ukraine supporters, off.
Why would that set off the Ukraine supporters?
Because they don't.
It seems kind of odd, because that would, in theory, work in their favor, would it not?
Well, I don't think it would, because they know that the people that live in the eastern area of Ukraine are mostly Russian-related people. So there's a good chance that in a legitimate quote-unquote election, those people would still vote to join Russia.
Yeah, it's a possibility. It's a risk.
Ukraine does not want that to happen. And so that's why...
It seems like it still is not a wise move for the Ukrainian government or politician or whoever this guy is, to have...
insulted him?
Insulted, yeah.
We'll talk about it coming up here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Basically, he's now saying to the military, hey, if you want service, you got to pay for it. And I bet you he's going to jack the rates up, too. We're coming up here. This is Free Talk Live. The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com.
Have you had enough of the big-name web hosting services that are long on promises but short on bleeding-edge features, uptime, and customer service? Try Agorist Hosting, the agile web host that offers full concierge service from website redesign, full e-commerce solutions, custom apps for your Shopify store, IPFS integration, and more. Agorist Hosting is ready to take your web presence into the future. To get started, head over to agoristhosting.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Dine with Seinfeld's parents. I'm Holland Cook with Inflation Hacks. You can still afford to dine out occasionally by shopping smart. As they do at Del Boca Vista, eat early. In restaurant lingo, you are in the first turn. A certain oyster bar my wife and I like offers buck a shuck before 6 p.m. Other tips? Opt in if your favorite spot has an email list. They'll tout specials. Have dessert at home. It and drinks are restaurants' most profitable items, and every add-on adds up to the tip. Members actually bother reading what AAA and AARP send you. You're entitled to a discount at some restaurants. How are you coping? Post your inflation hacks at andyoucanquoteme.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. Phones are open, and you can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. Want to say thank you to Shooty, who's a Free Talk Live supporter of our AMPS program. AMPS stands for Advertise, Market, Promote, and Support. It's a way for you to help us do what we do here. So if you appreciate Free Talk Live and you want to back us up, then head over to amps.freetalklive.com. That's amps.freetalklive.com. You can sign up there with your debit card, your credit card, or even your PayPal account if you still have one of those. I hear there's a lot of people deleting PayPal accounts after their recent announcement that they're going to punish people for so-called misinformation. So we'll see how long that our PayPal account lasts. But it's Ian and Chris here in the studio tonight. We're talking about a potential cutoff for the Ukrainian military's, apparently, their only way of accessing the internet, Starlink. Elon Musk.
How is that their only way to access the like? This doesn't even make sense to me. Like
they apparently leaned on it real heavy. They may have alternatives, but this is their main link.
That just blows my mind. I mean, you would think that they would have satellite phones, encrypted satellite phones, like military phones, not be so heavily reliant on Starlink of all things.
I don't know. They're making it sound bad. Maybe they do have alternatives, or maybe the U.S. military is busily shipping them now, so they have them when they didn't. But
maybe they were under-resourced in that department.
According to RT.com's version of the story, Elon Musk claimed he was following the instruction to F off, which outgoing ambassador to Germany, Andrei Melnik, issued to him by refusing to provide free Starlink satellite services to Kyiv. The CEO of SpaceX confirmed the connection on Friday. He responded to a correspondent from the Kyiv Post who shared news about the company's demand the Pentagon foot Ukraine's growing bill and how Melnik insulted Musk just recently. Musk tweeted, quote, "We're just following his recommendation," quote, and added a man shrugging emoji. Melnik lashed out at Musk on Twitter last week after the U.S. billionaire floated a Ukraine-Russia peace plan that involved Ukraine ceding some territory and adopting a neutral status. Many Ukrainian officials rejected the proposal with anger. Melnik said his message to Musk was a, quote, very diplomatic reply, where he told him to F off. Days later, Ukrainian troops reportedly started having issues with access to the Starlink system, with the Financial Times describing, quote, panicked calls from soldiers to helplines, unquote. Musk claimed his company had provided free service to Ukraine to the tune of $80 million. And he's saying, well, you told me to F off? All right, well, pay for your own internet service. On Thursday, CNN published a letter which it said SpaceX had sent to the Pentagon in September, demanding that it cover the cost of operating the system in Ukraine. The company is no longer, quote, in a position to further donate terminals to Ukraine or fund the existing terminals for an indefinite period of time. So Musk is saying, hey, you've had it for a year, guys. You've had it for a year and a half, roughly, at this point. Not year and a half. Half a year. I thought for a moment this thing's been going on longer than it has. So it was this year that the conflict started. So you've had it since March, roughly, and it's now October, and that's enough.
Yeah.
So he's done. And I think, it's not like they can't afford it. I mean, there was just $11 billion that I believe the U.S. federal government took of taxpayer money and shuffled $11 billion more over to Ukraine after $9 billion, after 40-something billion. Who knows how many dozens of billions we're up to at this point. But, they could shave off $100 million of that and put it towards internet access.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it's not going to be the thing that makes or breaks Ukraine's win or loss. But it certainly...
They're acting like it will.
But it's certainly, how do I say this? It certainly doesn't seem like it was a wise move to go targeting...
insult the man that runs your internet provider.
Definitely not. It's just...
How dare he come up with a peace plan? How dare he try to stop an international conflict?
And it's funny because I can understand why Ukraine wouldn't want to, go down that path, but it doesn't seem like it would be something that should upset you. If you can understand other people's perspectives in that they don't necessarily understand your perspective, right? You're the one fighting, presumably, or your people are, or whatever, right? And he's not, right? So he's not necessarily going to understand, why what he might have said would even upset you in the first place. So
sure, and he is somebody who values the idea, it seems like, of actually having peace, and these people value the idea of everlasting, eternal conflict. They don't want this conflict to end. That's why the Ukrainian president, Volodymyr Zelensky, is refusing to meet with Putin. He's just not even willing to talk to him.
Yeah.
If you're not willing to negotiate, you're someone who wants to continue to have a fight, obviously, because if he were to end the conflict, it would end the billions of dollars and the billions of, I presume they're getting euros as well, but the oodles of taxpayer money that are coming into Ukraine. And that's, the end of the money is the end of all the benefit for his buddies and his cronies, right? So they don't want this They don't want this to end.
War definitely is one way that a lot of people, they skim off the top.
Absolutely.
It is an interesting question of how much what is he gaining from this financially, potentially?
He meaning the president of Ukraine?
All of them. Any of these people who are,
well, in Musk's case, he spent $80 million of his own money, basically. It was the company's own money to keep these terminals alive. So he hasn't gained anything from this.
Yeah, that may be. But
he got some publicity out of it in the initial days, but now the same people that were cheering him on early on are mad at him for daring to propose peace.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, like, all that money, right? I mean, all that money that's being spent, it's going into somebody's pocket.
The billions?
Yeah, I mean, billions.
Oh, yeah. And, weapons manufacturers,
sure,
cronies, buddies of the president, family members, nepotism, all of that.
Oh yeah, this is one way that a lot of people make they make some good money, and it's not even something that only happens during wartime. That's just like a bonus. So.
Supporters of Ukraine credit Musk's satellite-based internet system with providing communications for the Ukrainian government. The man himself claimed that Russia had tried and failed to disable Starlink terminals in Ukraine on multiple occasions, which Moscow denies. Melnik, the top Ukrainian diplomat at the center of the controversy, has a long record of insulting various public figures, including the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz. During his tenure in Berlin, he called the German leader an offended liverwurst after Scholz took issue with Kyiv's refusal to host a proposed visit by the president of what looks like Germany. Friday marks the last day of Melnik's posting at the embassy in Berlin. Ukrainian President Zelensky relieved him of his position in July, but it took months for his replacement to be appointed. The diplomat was recalled after an interview in which he denied ethnic cleansing of Poles and Jews by Ukrainian nationalists during World War II. So I guess he's been fired, but he's still in the position and hasn't left yet or something, and he insulted Elon Musk, and here we are now. So it'll be interesting to see how this one plays out with Elon Musk being a player. This guy's got influence. He's the world's richest man for a reason. He's a shrewd businessman, and he knows the level of influence that he can throw his weight around with, and he's doing it with an international conflict right now. I mean, you've really gotta like appreciate the huevos that this guy has.
Yeah. This is an issue I wouldn't want to touch too much, just in general from a business perspective or a financial perspective. It just seems like you're just not gonna win it. You're not gonna gain anything. You're gonna ask to be harmed as a result of involving yourself in these sorts of politics.
The story from the MSN about this says that SpaceX at points has portrayed the Starlink service as a charitable venue. It hasn't covered the entire cost. The Post reported in April that the U.S. government had paid millions to SpaceX for equipment and transportation costs. The company has suggested in recent weeks that the Pentagon covers significant costs going forward, a development first reported by CNN Thursday. Senior advisor to Zelensky sounded a conciliatory note Friday and expressed confidence a deal would be reached to maintain the service. Like it or not, the advisor tweeted, Musk, quote, helped us survive the most critical moments of war. We will find a solution to keep Starlink working. We expect that the company will provide stable connection until the end of negotiations. So we'll see how it all pans out here. The number, if you want to join the show, is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. I know, Chris, you had some other international news that we can get into. Portugal is in the headlines for... I guess they're going to be bringing on some sort of a tax on cryptocurrency, or at least a tax that will affect cryptocurrency.
28%.
Oof.
Capital gains tax.
On the way here, if you want to weigh in on whatever's on your mind, you're welcome to take control of the airwaves. The number is 603-283-6160. You can join us here on Free Talk Live. We're coming up. Hour 2 is next.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm William Denslow. President Vladimir Putin says there's no longer a need for massive strikes on Ukraine. Russia has launched a series of attacks on a number of cities over recent days. Putin now says the country has other tasks. Russia, meanwhile, is warning it wants to revise a landmark deal between Turkey, the United Nations and Ukraine that's meant to ensure the possibility of exports through the Black Sea. Moscow says the agreement, which it hailed at the time as a success, is not equal and not being fairly implemented by all sides. Stuart Smith has more from Moscow.
The deal needs to be renewed in mid-November by all parties, but Russia says it has two main complaints: that guarantees to Moscow that were meant to make exporting its grain and fertilizer easier are not enough. There aren't any direct sanctions against Russian grain and fertilizer exports, but Moscow claims other sanctions on shipping insurance and financial transactions are causing issues. The Russian president also claims the grain sent from Ukraine is not, to a large enough extent, going to the world's most underdeveloped countries, a complaint Turkey's president on Thursday said he agreed with and would seek to change ahead of renewal. The Kremlin says it submitted its concerns to the United Nations.
The UK Prime Minister Liz Truss has defended her position after her credibility was questioned by journalists at a press conference in Downing Street. Truss sacked her Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng and U-turned on a decision to cut taxes after facing mounting criticism from MPs. Laura Macon-Isherwood has more from London.
On Friday, she recalled her Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng from a meeting in the United States and removed him from his post after facing repeated criticism over their mini-budget tax-cutting plans. In a televised address, Liz Truss said she had acted decisively and that she wants to deliver a high-growth economy. Jeremy Hunt, a well-known MP with significant government experience, now becomes the new Chancellor, a man Truss claims shares her ambitions for the country.
The UN World Food Programme is warning Haiti is facing a humanitarian catastrophe. Close to 5 million people, that's almost half of the Haitian population, are facing hunger. Jody Jacobs has more from UN headquarters in New York.
Malnutrition, gang violence and a cholera outbreak. And it's getting worse. The UN's World Food Programme says about 19,000 people in Port-au-Prince alone are facing catastrophic hunger, and the situation in all of Haiti, it says, is close to breaking point. Haitian gangs have for a month prevented the distribution of diesel and gasoline. This has resulted in crippling businesses and hospitals.
And South Korea is imposing its first unilateral sanctions against North Korea in 5 years. in response to ongoing missile tests. It comes as Pyongyang fired another missile into the Sea of Japan on Friday morning. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Global wildlife populations have fallen by nearly 70% in less than 50 years. That's according to the latest study by the World Wildlife Fund. Its Living Planet report has assessed 5,000 species of birds, amphibians, reptiles and fish worldwide and mapped how those populations have changed over the decades. They're now calling for immediate action to halt what they call a nature and climate crisis. Tanya Steele is the fund's chief executive.
It is a severe warning that we are facing both a climate and a nature catastrophe. And ultimately, it's driven by human activity, which has continued at pace in converting so much of the natural world, whether this has been through construction, but actually largely the way in which we're changing the natural world in terms of converting land for food and for agriculture. Importantly, world leaders have been missing in action despite dire warnings over repeated years, and we need them to step forward and put in place an action plan before it is too late.
She says there is a very, very short window for action, and while conceding that the war in Ukraine and other international developments are siphoning away the attention of many world leaders, she says the evidence of the impacts of climate change themselves speak volumes about the need to give the issue immediate focus. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
FSN is an independent source of news for TV, radio and digital networks worldwide. You can find more of our minute-by-minute updates on Twitter. Follow us there at Feature Story. And we have a wealth of audio and video stories from our global news bureaus on Facebook. You can find us there by following Feature Story News. Stay tuned for further updates right here. But for now, that's the latest Feature Story News. William Denzelo reporting.
A new Gallup poll found that the GOP has an overwhelming advantage among young people who look like old men. The poll shows Republicans hold a solid lead among the coveted elderly youth demographic, including 18 to 24-year-olds who wear suspenders and bow ties to class every day. I'm joined by Republican strategist Rob Powell. These are pretty encouraging numbers for the GOP, aren't they?
Yeah, of course, it's very encouraging. Millennials who look like they're permanently dressed for boat trips are a rapidly growing segment of the population.
And according to the survey, the prematurely aged are also very politically active.
Absolutely. Only about 20% of young people vote overall, but there's almost 100% turnout among youth that dress like a dad from a 1950s sitcom.
Now, what about the criticism that the GOP only appeals to white men?
Not true. We also have a lot of support among sorority girls that wear pantsuits and pearls, paunchy Chinese college students, and we're making inroads among African American ham radio enthusiasts.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
Hey, it's Free Talk Live. Welcome to the program here. As always, you can join us and bring up anything you want to talk about. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Joining you in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
And Chris.
We've already talked about the National Guard is having a tough time. People, they're leaving more sooner than people are joining. There are more people leaving than are joining. We covered that. Elon Musk is threatening to cut off Starlink service to Ukraine after a Ukraine bureaucrat told him to F off. So he said, all right, well, I'll just turn my service off then if that's what you want. So there's some interesting news there. And, of course, the phones are open. You can bring up anything at 603-283-6160. Chris, you had some other international-related news, and I saw this headline recently about Portugal. Apparently, it's in the the crypto news headlines.
Oh, for sure.
That Portugal used to be a place where crypto people were thinking about moving to because it had been friendly as far as its laws, its tax laws were concerned to cryptocurrency. Not anymore, apparently.
Seems like they're doing a flip here.
Yeah, what's going on over there?
So this is a story from Kitco, and the title is Portugal explores 28% capital gain tax on cryptocurrencies. So yeah, it sounds pretty crazy. After becoming one of the most crypto-friendly nations in Europe with no crypto tax on individuals, Portugal is now looking into the idea of a 28% capital gain tax for digital currencies. I mean, it's like they want to run people out of the country, right? The country's finance minister, Fernando Medina, I think, submitted a new budget draft proposal that calls for a 28% levy on capital gains from cryptocurrency assets held for less than a year. However, there is a big exemption. The tax would not apply to any gains on cryptocurrencies kept for longer than a year. It's almost like they're trying to force people into turning it into an investment as opposed to using it as a currency.
Strange.
Yeah. Any capital gains from issuing new cryptocurrencies and mining operations will also be taxable under the new provision. Another addition is a 10% tax on cryptocurrency transfers and 4% levy on brokers' commissions that the draft budget stated.
So this is a proposed budget.
I mean, they're trying to kill it, is what they're trying to do, it sounds like.
They're trying to kill cryptocurrency,
Yeah.
you mean? A 10% tax on transfers?
I'm going to read it again. Another addition is a 10% tax on cryptocurrency transfers. I don't know if that means
insane.
Like if I make a payment for like a soda that I have to pay a 10% tax on that.
What else could it possibly mean?
I don't know. I mean, this is Europe.
Yeah.
I mean, the Europeans are crazy. At least the government is.
Yeah.
Wow. And politicians in general are crazy. So, yeah, who knows? So far, Portugal has
hold on. You said that you think this is them trying to run people out of the country.
I don't know. I mean,
that's obviously going to be how the most wealthy crypto people respond, right? Because why would you want to keep a tremendous amount of wealth under these sorts of circumstances? The average person, they're probably not going to, sell their house and their business just to leave the country. So they're probably They're probably banking on the majority of people are not going to make any changes, and that therefore they will get more tax revenue even if they lose the richest 1% of crypto people.
You're probably right, except that these countries in Europe are doing everything in their power to run people out of their country, not just through cryptocurrency. This is not that's not really that abnormal. I mean, they've got 20%, something equivalent to a sales tax called a VAT.
The VAT tax, value added tax,
and that goes all the way up to 25% in some cases.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on which country we're talking about specifically. But to be part of the European Union, you're required to have a VAT tax between between 15% and 25%. It has to be, but in practice, it's like 20 to 25%.
Does a portion of that go to the EU top level?
No, I don't believe that's how that works. It's to the country. At least a business would send it to the country that they are. At least this is how it did work. That they are in. Now, I think it might work a little bit differently if you're a international European business as opposed to
does the country send
operating
some
out of
it?
a single state.
So if you're in, I don't know, Belgium or whatever, and there's this VAT tax, it's being collected obviously by that country, but then does a portion of that go to the EU?
I don't believe so.
Why would they force everyone to have it then?
Because it would. Think of it this way. Think about New Hampshire, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't have a tax. We don't have a sales tax in New Hampshire.
Correct.
And what does that do?
Or an income tax.
It brings money into the state by people from Vermont and Massachusetts and Maine.
So you're
coming
just
to
saying
shop
we don't
in
want
New Hampshire.
We don't want those things happening here. We don't want choices.
Exactly. Because what that does is it would encourage people to buy from other countries,
right?
And in the European Union, and pay less tax, and that would disenfranchise, a country that has a higher VAT rate.
Right. It would allow
more
competition. It would actually give, slight differences from one country to the next and allow people to choose.
There is a slight difference. If you're in France and there's a 20, we'll say it's, I don't know what it is, but let's say it's 20% VAT.
Mm-hmm.
If you purchase from another a company in France and you're in France, you're going to pay that 20%. But if you purchase from another country, like I'm trying to think, like the Netherlands or something like that, they have like a 25%, I believe, VAT there.
So the VATs don't have to be the same amount?
in the Netherlands, I would be paying, when I purchase from a Netherlands company, I'd be paying 25% VAT, as I understand it, and not the 20%. So it's based on where the company is located from. At least I think if it's under a certain size. I think they have.
Just to clarify, are you saying that different countries in the EU can have different percentage VATs?
Correct.
Could they have a 1% VAT?
No.
So there's a certain minimum that they have.
There's a minimum. I think it's like 15%.
I see.
It's not. I don't know if any country actually has a 15% VAT.
Wow.
But there's a minimum, and then there's like a maximum.
They tend towards 20.
Yeah, it's usually around 20. But there are some countries with 25% in Europe.
But your point is they're giving people a lot of reasons to leave the European Union.
Oh,
and
yeah.
the number one reason is going to be this winter. It's going to be effing cold there.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Because of the energy situation that has developed, given that they're no longer getting Russian natural gas from Russia, which is in many of those countries. I think Italy is 40% of their energy is coming from Russia, and that's gone now. So they're going to be in a real tough spot, let alone now taxing people's cryptocurrency. So a little bit here, a little bit there, it's all adding up to a really big government situation. But then again, there's a lot of people in Europe that just love big government. They're willing to freeze their asses off in order to have it.
I really don't think the Europeans understand how much they're undermining their own prosperity. By being in favor of these leftist policies and regulations and things. It's
they don't see the long term.
They don't understand. They don't understand.
No, they have no concept of economics.
They come to the United. And it's funny because they come to the United States and they're like, "Oh my God, the vehicles are so big, and your washer and dryers are so big here, and it's like, and the houses are so big here, and it's like." Yeah, do you ever wonder why, people are better off here than where you come from in Europe? It's not, and these are people coming from like well-to-do countries like the UK and the Netherlands, or at least that are put forward as well-to-do countries, right? And Germany, right? It's not. We're not even talking about like poorer countries within Europe, right? Like Spain and I think Italy, and and some of the Eastern European countries. Those are really poor, right? But we're talking about like solid economics or economies, relatively speaking, within Europe.
A lot of wealth, a lot of people.
And these people are they're coming to the United States, and they're amazed at like just how, I don't think they understand it from that perspective that they're not as well off, but they're like, oh, this doesn't even exist in Europe. Like it's that bad. It's because the people in Europe don't have the money to purchase nicer things, or they might
they're taxed to death.
Yeah, they're taxed to death. Yeah. And that's assuming they even have things like washers and dryers in their apartments, or they're
not going to a laundromat.
Right. So
there's more coming up here about the capital gains tax is being proposed there in Portugal. You said.
Yeah, this is Portugal.
That's coming up. We'll get a little bit further into that. Of course, your calls and thoughts are welcome. The number is 603-283-6160. If you're in Europe right now and you're planning to leave, would love to hear about your plans, why you're leaving, and where you're going to go. This is Free Talk Live.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you're helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com. Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 15th through the 18th for the 7th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which sold out in 2022. For 2023, we're going back to where it all started, the weekend before PorcFest. ForkFest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 15th through the 18th. You can find out more at the unofficial website forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the ForkFest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the ForkFest forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there June 15th through the 18th. forkfest.party. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
How many lawyers does it take to change a light bulb? None. They'd rather keep their clients in the dark. There are too many lawyer jokes to count. However, there are some lawyers with more noble intentions. At the Institute for Justice, we bring the light to our clients. We are a non-profit public interest law firm with clear values and principles. At IJ, we fight for those whose most basic rights are denied by the government. Visit our website today at ij.org.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. The phones are open. You can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Ian and Chris in the studio here tonight. You can join us online anytime you want. Just head over to freetalklive.com and you can enjoy the features that we have for you there, including the social media site that we operate at social.freetalklive.com. That's where you can go and interact with other Free Talk Live listeners. I like to post the show prep that we do, that at least that I have here over on the Free Talk Live account there, the FTL account that you can find at social.freetalklive.com. Another great website is Freedom's Phoenix. It's your source for all news, economic news, government overreach, insane government spending, and more. You can get today's headlines in one place and from a fresh libertarian perspective over at freedomsphoenix.com. That's freedoms with an S, phoenix.com. Chris, you're sharing with us a story from Europe. Over in Portugal, they're talking about implementing a new tax. They're going to apply a 28%, I think it was, capital gains tax to anyone who sells cryptocurrency within a year from when they bought it. That's one of the proposals. Then they're talking about a 10% transfer tax. And it's not real clear what that means, but it sure sounds like anytime crypto moves from one point to another that they want to tax it.
I mean, that sounds like they're talking about it. If it's assuming it's both of those things, then I would think you would end up paying a 38% tax in theory, maybe.
Well, yeah. Well, if you were selling it, right? So the capital gains is only when you sell it,
you have to transfer it, right? So would that then be, if you do it within a year?
Maybe you don't. I mean, you wouldn't be. Let's say you were on an exchange, and you have your Bitcoin balance that you bought Bitcoin earlier in the year. Let's say it was 10,000 euro, and then it's now 20,000 euro, and you want to sell it, but you've never taken it off the exchange. So therefore, there's no transfer in that particular case because you're just ordering the exchange to sell it.
Wouldn't that be you transferring it between your account and the exchange?
No, the exchange is the account. That's your account on the exchange is still their account. It's just I
know that's
in
how
your name.
you see it, but I don't think that's how the government's going to see it.
They may not. They may not. But if you think about it, the transfer tax is another disincentive to spend the crypto.
Oh, yeah.
And it's also a disincentive to remove it from the exchange.
I mean, imagine if they charged you 10% to spend your own money. Oh, wait a minute. They already charged 20 to 25% to spend your own money. But imagine if they added another 10% to that.
What do you mean they charge 20 to 25%?
Well, there's the VAT, right?
Oh,
so
I see what
every
you
time
mean.
you buy something, you're paying
it's crazy.
A tax already as it is. So, and this presumably is on top of that. So if I go to pay somebody with crypto, then I'm paying the VAT plus to at least 10%, maybe 38%, depending on how they're going to implement it.
This is really disturbing. If they're going to, it sounds like if this goes through, of course they're going to lean on the exchanges to be the ones that implement these taxes, right? Because you can't. You can't. Identify necessarily one user sending Bitcoin to another user because that's sort of pseudonymous in that when you create a Bitcoin wallet, you are not necessarily attaching an identity to that wallet. So if you download Edge Wallet right now and you create a Bitcoin wallet, you've just created something that no one else knows exists.
It's kind of interesting because they have no way to actually enforce this in practice, I think.
Except for the exchanges.
Except for when businesses use an exchange or an individual uses an exchange.
Right.
Or a payment processor of some kind to accept cryptocurrency on their behalf.
Right. Or if a business is accepting crypto and the word gets out that they're accepting it and they can identify, they send in an undercover officer to identify what their address are, then they could watch them, and they could unless you're using Monero or some other privacy coin, which maybe the solution here is moving to privacy coins for people in Europe.
It's possible. Now
that's what it's going to take. By the way, it's privacy. As much as you and I might like, say, Monero or one of its competitors to take off and become very popular, it's not going to happen until there's a reason for people to do it. And unfortunately, that's going to mean that the government's going to start pushing and hurt people.
There's already a reason for Monero to take off, I think.
There are reasons, but not to the average person.
Even for the average person.
Really?
I think so. I think you can look at examples like, for example, the Canadian was it the protest at the Capitol?
The truckers.
The trucker protest. Yeah. I think that's a great example where they seized people's bank accounts. And
they did.
Those were just average people.
And then they sanctioned Bitcoin accounts and Ethereum accounts as well. They told exchanges you're not allowed to deal with these specified accounts.
Yep. I think the thing that's holding privacy coins back, especially right now, is not. It's nothing to do with. People not wanting to use them. I think it's mostly got to do with the fact that the tools aren't as well developed as, for merchants, especially accepting cryptocurrencies. But the tools are getting better and we are seeing improvements, as the years go by. So I think it is just a matter of time.
I hope you're right about that.
There are, and I think governments already, and if we take Europe as a perfect example, because they've already passed certain regulations in terms of cryptocurrency over there. And as an example, if you use, so this is kind of interesting. So people have blamed, it's kind of interesting, I think, because people I don't think people have understood what's happened with, like, for example, BitPay. When you go to a merchant that accepts BitPay, and it prompts you to ID yourself to do KYC, which I don't know if you're aware of this.
BitPay is doing that?
Yes. But let's back up a moment. Let's explain. Let's go into a little bit of the details so you understand.
BitPay, for listeners that don't know, is a merchant payment processor for cryptocurrency. So brick and mortar merchant, you can use them for online as well. So they have like an online side and a real life brick and mortar side. You can put it on a tablet, you can put their app on the tablet, and it will make it easier in theory to accept payments for crypto.
Yeah, so I kind of knew this had already happened because I had encountered it before, and I also was, I read all of the news when it happened. But basically, the other day, this is why I was thinking of it actually, the other day or a week ago, something like this, I went to a website and I'm like, oh, they take Bitcoin, great, or cryptocurrency, whatever, right? I saw BitPay, right? And I'm like, and it was some sort of digital thing, right? I didn't even have to have it shipped, I don't think. I think it was something digital. And I went to pay, and I'm like, okay, I don't really want to provide my ID. I mean, it wasn't anything, it didn't really matter that much, but I didn't really want to give them my personal information.
Sure.
And so I went to check out, and I clicked the BitPay option. I went to check out, and I realized, I had the recollection of, I can't do this. And the reason I kind of had forgotten about it is because I pay merchants that use BitPay all the time, and I don't have any problems with just checking out, anonymously. I'm not forced to put in any information.
Okay.
Well, in Europe, they're now required to do KYC.
Really?
In order, at least the exchanges and the payment processors are required to do KYC. So
know your customer.
Right. So if I want to check out, I have to do KYC with BitPay and have an account there before I can check out at this merchant, that
a European merchant.
Right, the European merchant. But I don't want to provide them that information. I ended up just buying the same thing basically from in the United States, where I didn't have to do that. But but this is the thing. It's like, it's like Europe. They're pushing people out. They don't want you to do business in Europe.
No.
They don't want your money, even if you're in the United States, to do business with the people in Europe.
It's crazy.
They're undermining their own economy.
And they're going to keep doing it until it's driven completely into the ground, and maybe the people will wake up and demand something better, but it's not looking too good right now, given that they're going to go into what may be a very cold winter for their support of Ukraine. More coming up.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm William Denslow. President Vladimir Putin says there's no longer a need for massive strikes on Ukraine. Russia has launched a series of attacks on a number of cities over recent days. Putin now says the country has other tasks. Russia, meanwhile, is warning it wants to revise a landmark deal between Turkey, the United Nations and Ukraine that's meant to ensure the possibility of exports through the Black Sea. Moscow says the agreement, which it hailed at the time as a success, is not equal and not being fairly implemented by all sides. Stuart Smith has more from Moscow.
The deal needs to be renewed in mid-November by all parties, but Russia says it has two main complaints: that guarantees to Moscow that were meant to make exporting its grain and fertilizer easier are not enough. There aren't any direct sanctions against Russian grain and fertilizer exports, but Moscow claims other sanctions on shipping insurance and financial transactions are causing issues. The Russian president also claims the grain sent from Ukraine is not, to a large enough extent, going to the world's most underdeveloped countries, a complaint Turkey's president on Thursday said he agreed with and would seek to change ahead of renewal. The Kremlin says it submitted its concerns to the United Nations.
The UK Prime Minister Liz Truss has defended her position after her credibility was questioned by journalists at a press conference in Downing Street. Truss sacked her Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng and U-turned on a decision to cut taxes after facing mounting criticism from MPs. Laura Macon-Isherwood has more from London.
On Friday, she recalled her Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng from a meeting in the United States and removed him from his post after facing repeated criticism over their mini-budget tax-cutting plans. In a televised address, Liz Truss said she had acted decisively and that she wants to deliver a high-growth economy. Jeremy Hunt, a well-known MP with significant government experience, now becomes the new Chancellor, a man Truss claims shares her ambitions for the country.
The UN World Food Programme is warning Haiti is facing a humanitarian catastrophe. Close to 5 million people, that's almost half of the Haitian population, are facing hunger. Jody Jacobs has more from UN headquarters in New York.
Malnutrition, gang violence, and a cholera outbreak. And it's getting worse. The UN's World Food Programme says about 19,000 people in Port-au-Prince alone are facing catastrophic hunger. And the situation in all of Haiti, it says, is close to breaking point. Haitian gangs have for a month prevented the distribution of diesel and gasoline. This has resulted in crippling businesses and hospitals.
And South Korea is imposing its first unilateral sanctions against North Korea in 5 years, in response to ongoing missile tests. It comes as Pyongyang fired another missile into the Sea of Japan on Friday morning. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. You can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. We're talking about the European Union looking to crack down on cryptocurrency. You brought up a story tonight, Chris, that was about Portugal possibly going to be implementing a 28% capital gains tax, maybe even a 10% so-called transfer tax on cryptocurrency, which seems absolutely insane. But the results of this, if they actually do put it into place, would be the disincentive for spending crypto, because the 28% capital gains tax would only apply to people who sold their crypto less than a year from when they bought it. So it's encouraging people to hold on to the crypto, which isn't necessarily a bad thing to encourage, but you don't want to do it by threatening them with a 28% tax. You should just simply encourage the holding of crypto simply because it could work out for you in the long run if you hold longer than not. Usually the people that get cold feet and they sell quickly on a downturn or something like that, years later, a lot of the time they regret selling the crypto because frequently it does go back up and not only regains what it lost, but in some cases goes even beyond, further up than it has ever gone. We're in a downturn right now, but the thing you always have to look at on these downturns is you always have to zoom out. It's easy to look at the last year and say, oh no, a year ago we were on a run up, I think right about now, to what ended up being a world record high for the price of Bitcoin. It ended up at like $67,000, $68,000 a coin. It's now at around $19,000 to $20,000. So it's quote unquote down, but it's still up compared to 2 or 3 years ago.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So it's always important to zoom out and look at the big picture.
It seems like most of the time what we have is we have a run up and then we have a panic and then we end up lower, but it eventually then goes back up to its height and then surpasses that. It gets absolutely insane. We have a panic. It goes down. Usually it doesn't go down below what it was at previous height, but
typically there's no guarantees though. We may never see $25,000 Bitcoin again. Maybe this will be the new high, and it'll go down from here. We have no idea what's going to happen.
That hasn't happened historically, but certainly Bitcoin's only it's only
13 years old.
Yeah,
coming up on 14.
It's not that old. So but of the 13 years it's been around, it's pretty much, you just give it 2 or 3 years and you're probably going to be doing better no matter what point at which you bought it at.
Seems that way.
Yeah, thus far, right? I mean, as you said, you're right. It could go down. And it does go down.
You also touched on something, and I know there'd been some news about the European Union recently. We hadn't covered the story, but I did see the headlines where they're putting in these regulations. They're going to try to control anonymous cryptos. They're going specifically after wallet providers.
They're trying.
Exchanges. You said just in the last segment that BitPay is now requiring people in the European Union to pass through Know Your Customer requirements to simply make a payment.
To clarify that, it's if the merchant is in the European Union. So
everyone they have to deal with then, whether they're in the U.S. or whether they're in Africa or in the EU, all of their customers are required to know your customer.
Which is why I was saying before the break that I decided not to do business with a company in Europe And, I was already disincentivized from doing business with the company in Europe because their costs are so much higher. It would have cost me 3 times what it would be in the United States to buy the same thing. And ultimately, at the end of the day, the thing that put me off was not the price. It was, in fact, it was the KYC that I would be required to do with BitPay in order to pay this European merchant. I ended up just going to the United States and paying like $8 for something that was, 3 times that in Europe.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean,
they're going to lose out. They're going to lose out on a lot of business.
Europe is undermining its merchants. It's undermining, its population. And
right. Well, if you thought it was expensive now, wait until you've got to pay the prices for these products when the companies have a power bill that's 5 times as much.
Oh yeah,
that's going to get passed on to the product cost too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. It's like these are things they were doing yesterday, right? Yeah. That's not what they're going to have to do
next year,
tomorrow, because
this winter.
Yeah. It's not even. I don't even think it's going to hit for the winter. I think it's going to be next year because ultimately they have the what is it, the oil and all that, or natural gas, as I understand it. It's not looking
good. There was a story that came out of, it was RT that was reporting on it, but they were reporting on the German results of their initial, they had a cold snap there apparently in Germany. So it got unseasonably cold sooner than it would have normally. And they said that Germans in their private homes,
they didn't turn down the
heat down at all.
Yeah, I heard that too.
The heat consumption, the power consumption was up 15% above the last 5-year average.
Ooh, that's not good.
This is happening at the same time as the government is saying you need to cut back by 10 to 15%.
It may not last as long as we think. Right now, as I understood it, there were something like Germany, specifically, I think it was at like 87% or something like that of their
the reserves,
which should have put them through the winter. But what that means is next winter,
that's if they cut back 15%, it'll make it
right.
through.
You're right.
Yeah.
But the point is that I was trying to make is that in theory they should be able to get through this winter. It's not this winter's heating bills that are going to be a problem. It's going to be next winter when there isn't any, there isn't even any natural gas to go around because they can't simply solve the problem by building new infrastructure. They literally have to build new infrastructure, and we're talking about multi-year long projects to do that. So even if let's just say let's give them the benefit of the doubt and say they rush the projects, they still, first of all, they're not going to get it done in a sufficiently timely fashion in order to make up for the lack of oil that they're getting. They're not getting any oil from Russia, which is where most of the oil was coming from. So, even if they get some of that infrastructure up sooner, it's still not going to solve the problem for next winter. That's when it doesn't matter what the price is. You won't be able to afford it, basically. You just won't get any because it just won't exist. So whatever it is now is not even what you should be concerned about.
No, that's another reason it's a good idea to get out if you're in Europe, right?
Yeah.
To move to an island nation or somewhere else.
One of the it's interesting because it's going to have a negative impact on us in the United States as well. But one of the benefits of being in the United States, not that I'm advocating for the U.S. government or anything like that one of the benefits of being in the United States in this situation is that while prices are going to go up for this stuff, they're not. It shouldn't be as bad because the infrastructure is here and they don't have the infrastructure to export. Basically all of they're going to export our natural gas from the United States to Europe. Don't get me wrong. So prices are going to go up here,
because they're going to pay.
Right. But there's only so much they can export because the infrastructure just doesn't exist. So,
well, they'll build it if Europe's willing to pay.
Sure, right? They're going to build it, but it's going to take 2 or 3 years to build it. Yeah. So, if not longer. So, at least for the next 2 or 3 years, the prices in the United States shouldn't be as, high.
They're going to go up,
Europe.
but they won't be as bad as Europe.
Right.
Barring any other unforeseen developments.
Right.
Let's go to Sarah. She's on the line in New Mexico. Go ahead, Sarah. Hello? Sarah? Going once. Sarah going twice. All right. The number here, if you want to join the show, is 603-283-6160. Was there more that you wanted to share from this story? We pretty much covered it. Okay,
no. There's a bit more. Let me read a little bit more of it. So far, Portugal has only taxed capital gains made from crypto via professional or business activities, excluding individuals from this rule. So you and me wouldn't have to pay it, but I guess if you're like some sort of broker, then you would.
Okay.
But that is now about to change. The new tax provision is included in the country's 2023 proposed tax budget, according to the documentation submitted to Parliament this week. According to the government, these new rules are similar to what other European countries are implementing. So this isn't just,
they're copying
a bill that might happen. This is a bill that probably is going to happen because it's already being done in other countries in Europe. It's a regime that fits into our tax system and also to what is being done to the rest of Europe. Secretary of State for Tax Affairs Antonio Mendes told reporters, before becoming law, the Portuguese government parliament must approve the new budget. Crypto experts do not see Portugal's new crypto tax proposals as surprising.
More coming up. We'll share it with you. You can share your thoughts as well. The number is 603-283-6160. You can bring up whatever is on your mind here. Again, the number is 603-283-6160. This is Free Talk Live. Do you prefer to listen to Free Talk Live on your schedule on demand? You can find the link to our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com, which features the daily digest of our radio show 7 days a week. Just drop our RSS feed into your favorite podcast client or subscribe to us on the large platforms if you prefer, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartMedia, Spotify, and Stitcher. All the links are at feeds.freetalklive.com. If the daily digests aren't enough for you and you really don't want to miss a moment of Free Talk Live, you can always sign up for our AMPS Patreon at amps.freetalklive.com for just $5 a month, and you'll get the full radio show without recorded commercials. Plus, you'll help us advertise, market, promote, and support Free Talk Live. That's amps.freetalklive.com to join AMPS, or feeds.freetalklive.com to get our main podcast, or find us on the major podcast platforms.
I'm a little obsessed with My Magic Mud. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, the founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I didn't even know my teeth were coffee stained. A week's worth of use convinced me, and now I use it every 3 or 4 days. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, and I think it cleans better too. My Magic Mud's available at most local health food stores, Sprouts, Natural Grocers, CVS, Walmart's Natural Beauty Aisle, but I can get it for you for 20% off with coupon code FTL20 at mymagicmud.com. FTL20 mymagicmud.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. The phones are open, and you can join the show here at 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Ian and Chris in the studio tonight. You can join us online anytime you want. Just head over to freetalklive.com and do enjoy the features that we share with you there. Once again, it's freetalklive.com. You can download archives, daily digests of the show. You can support us. You can get interactive in various different ways, all over at freetalklive.com. We go to the phones here to the fun. Dodger is on the line calling us in Michigan. Go ahead, Dodger.
Yes. So have either of you ever come across somebody in your lives that is so libertarian, they're probably more libertarian than you, and don't even know it?
I mean, there's probably somebody like that here in New Hampshire, but we're pretty libertarian on this show, so it's hard to say.
Yeah,
that.
I think you're talking to the wrong people asking that, or asking that question to the wrong people.
Oh, no, well, no, I asked that because, all right, so I have a brother that literally is so anti-political and so trying to work against the system. He didn't even know that he was a libertarian until I'm like, sounds like you're a libertarian, dude. And he's like, no, I don't want to put labels on myself.
Okay.
Sounds like Bob.
There's a lot of libertarians who don't want to put labels on themselves.
Yeah, like he flat out. Anyway, so
they're anti-labelist libertarians. If you're going to label them,
my partner's that way. Yeah.
So so essentially, he just anyway. So, for long story short, he and I live together, and let's just say in the last 2 years, our rent has gone up $400.
And what was it before?
Let's just say, where
are you living?
Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Okay. But what was the rent, and now it's plus 400? So it was
$1,100 to $1,500. Well,
wow.
Yeah,
so that's like a 36% increase or something like that, right? That's a lot.
It's absolutely ridiculous. And we've been talking about buying property, and I'm like, dude, I'm already. I had some setbacks. I'm already committed to go to New Hampshire, dude. I'm going.
Nice.
And so at either rate, he's a programmer that works from home. Like he could work anywhere.
Yeah.
And he actually came to me the other night and asked me the question. He said, all right, so what was that realtor's name there in New Hampshire?
Probably Mark Warden, the Porcupine real estate agent.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the best known.
So at either rate, so me, I'm pretty sure that I could figure out work in the ag-risk market. I'm somebody that I'm a contractor, so essentially. So I'm a remodeler. I'm pretty sure that I can find work. He's a programmer, and he's worried because he's also trying to, at the same time, leave his employer. So I'm trying to convince him that after our lease is done next year, instead of buying property here in Michigan, that we need to be looking in New Hampshire. How do I
absolutely. I mean, you said he's already portable with his job, so that might be. I understand he sounds like he wants to leave, but maybe hang on for a time at least until you can get your feet wet here in New Hampshire, unless it's just absolutely that terrible to work for whoever it is he works for.
It's pretty bad.
Okay.
He hasn't gotten a raise in 3 years.
Wow. Well, at least, as from what I understand, and Chris, maybe you can comment on this to some extent, as I understand it, the Central Corridor in New Hampshire, sort of Nashua, Manchester, and Concord are kind of known as like the tech corridor. There are a fair number of tech companies there that have programming kind of jobs. Not so much out here in Keene, or I don't know about the Seacoast.
I mean, Keene. The problem with Keene is it's not. We're looking at 80,000 for the county, and
it's like
a small 20,000 for the town. So versus Nashua with 100,000 ish, Manchester with 100,000 ish. I don't think Concord's Concord's
like 40
population,
but the areas surrounding them also have a lot of more people in general. So those are the places where you're going to want to look for those sorts of jobs. If he's willing to be flexible for a time, there's pretty much everybody and anybody is hiring here. So if he can find a job that he likes, there's a good chance he's going to get hired. Just have him start looking and see what's out here.
Well, yeah, and in my trade, I mean, really, I'm highly sought after. I'm not even making as much as I should. And that's part of the reason I'm like, I kind of want to go to where I should be making what I deserve, type of thing. At either rate, I think you guys have really helped. He's listening in the next room.
Well, if it's possible, I don't know what the financial situation is there. A lot of people seem to benefit from a visit to New Hampshire. Come on up, come to some of the meetups that are happening in various different parts of the state. If you can, meet some of the people in the community and just, put your feelers out and ask around. You never know what you're going to find, but so that sort of personal networking could possibly reveal opportunities that maybe you wouldn't find on Indeed.com or whatever the other job sites are that you can go and find jobs on. But that's where I would start looking is, go online first and just see what's the most obvious options. And if you can afford to come up for a visit, come on up and come to some of the meetups in the different major areas and see what else might be out there that you don't know about.
Well, I'm at either rate, if I'm in New Hampshire, Ian, I've been a very long time listener. I'd like to meet you.
Well, great. We're at almost every event in the Keene area, so if you come out, there's a good chance Chris and I or Bonnie and other people are probably going to be there.
Chris
So
too. I mean, I kind of feel like you guys are my family. I may not call in often, but I'm always listening.
Yeah, well, thank you, Dodger, for that. And the best way to find out what's going on up here in New Hampshire is to check out the Free State Project's calendar. You can go to fsp.org/calendar, and it has a statewide calendar of happenings. There's usually more things happening on one given day than you could possibly attend because they're happening in different areas at similar time frames. So that's one of the benefits of being here is that there's just such a huge movement. There's so many liberty activists here. There's a lot going on. So
yeah, and I honestly like finding a job here. If you can't find a job here, you're
not trying.
There's something wrong with you, probably not the market. Whether we were talking before 5 years ago or now, there's just so many jobs. I think
Penguin's hiring, I heard.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I was just about to say I've gone through 5 or 6 Free Staters as employees, even just in the 5 or 6 years that I've been here.
Mm-hmm.
And
hey, you guys know anybody that wants a bathroom remodeled?
You never know, man.
I was actually just thinking about it recently. But
yeah. So hey, Dodger, thanks for
man. Anyway,
well, you got to be here first, and then you might get some jobs like that, right? Thanks for the call, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for considering New Hampshire. And he's got a good plan. Look, when your lease runs out, you're paying 40% more on the lease. I'm not going to tell you your rent's going to be cheaper here. It depends on where you move. So, if you're living in the city, you're probably going to pay more than if you're living out in the woods. As I understand it, you can get much cheaper rent if you are willing to drive a little bit.
You're probably not going to be paying anywhere in New Hampshire relative to other populated areas. I would think.
Run that by me again.
I don't think the cost of rent or ownership is going to be high relative to other populated areas like California or New York and New Jersey.
Yeah, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about Michigan, so I don't know.
About Michigan.
New Hampshire's going to be cheap compared to some places in California, for sure.
He was talking about $1,500 now he's paying. I don't know.
Yeah, but we didn't hear what it was, 2-bedroom or whatever. So you're going to have to do that research.
I mean, he was paying 11 to,
and we know
11
there's been a high
though.
demand on properties here.
This is
New
true.
Hampshire,
it has gone up for sure.
It's slowing down, it seems like, because now the
market's crashed.
The market's, I wouldn't call it a crash quite yet, but it's slowing
It's
down.
gone. It's definitely not.
You're not seeing the bidding wars happening right now, from what I understand, on properties. There's a property on the other street. Used to be, we'd see a house, like last year at this time, if a house went on the market, it'd be gone within 5 days.
Oh, yeah.
If it were 5 days, it would be a long time for it to be on the market. And there's usually a bidding war for multiple buyers trying to buy that house.
In Keene, just give people an idea of like how much things have gone up, but they're still not that bad by comparison to like New Jersey, New York, California. But like a 1-bedroom small house, $50,000-$60,000, 2-3 years ago, selling maybe $200 something now, or maybe even more.
Dude, it's not up that much. I've been watching.
I think it was $243 for the house across the street from me. It is up that much.
Then it wasn't $40,000 before.
No, I didn't say 40. I said 50 or 60,000 before.
You're not going from 50,000 to 240,000 in Keene. That's not happening, dude. It's like maybe 10%. There's more coming up here.
I'm telling you,
according to Zillow.
It probably was remodeled.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Have you had enough of the big-name web hosting services that are long on promises but short on bleeding-edge features, uptime, and customer service? Try Agorist Hosting, the agile web host that offers full concierge service from website redesign, full e-commerce solutions, custom apps for your Shopify store, IPFS integration, and more. Agorist Hosting is ready to take your web presence into the future. To get started, head over to agoristhosting.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm William Denslow. President Vladimir Putin says there's no longer a need for massive strikes on Ukraine. Russia has launched a series of attacks on a number of cities over recent days. Putin now says the country has other tasks. Russia, meanwhile, is warning it wants to revise a landmark deal between Turkey, the United Nations and Ukraine that's meant to ensure the possibility of exports through the Black Sea. Moscow says the agreement, which it hailed at the time as a success, is not equal and not being fairly implemented by all sides. Stuart Smith has more from Moscow.
The deal needs to be renewed in mid-November by all parties, but Russia says it has two main complaints: that guarantees to Moscow that were meant to make exporting its grain and fertilizer easier are not enough. There aren't any direct sanctions against Russian grain and fertilizer exports, but Moscow claims other sanctions on shipping insurance and financial transactions are causing issues. The Russian president also claims the grain sent from Ukraine is not, to a large enough extent, going to the world's most underdeveloped countries, a complaint Turkey's president on Thursday said he agreed with and would seek to change ahead of renewal. The Kremlin says it submitted its concerns to the United Nations.
The UK Prime Minister Liz Truss has defended her position after her credibility was questioned by journalists at a press conference in Downing Street. Truss sacked her Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng and U-turned on a decision to cut taxes after facing mounting criticism from MPs. Laura Macon-Isherwood has more from London.
On Friday, she recalled her Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng from a meeting in the United States and removed him from his post after facing repeated criticism over their mini-budget tax-cutting plans. In a televised address, Liz Truss said she had acted decisively and that she wants to deliver a high-growth economy. Jeremy Hunt, a well-known MP with significant government experience, now becomes the new Chancellor, a man Truss claims shares her ambitions for the country.
The UN World Food Programme is warning Haiti is facing a humanitarian catastrophe. Close to 5 million people, that's almost half of the Haitian population, are facing hunger. Jody Jacobs has more from UN headquarters in New York.
Malnutrition, gang violence and a cholera outbreak. And it's getting worse. The UN's World Food Programme says about 19,000 people in Port-au-Prince alone are facing catastrophic hunger. And the situation in all of Haiti, it says, is close to breaking point. Haitian gangs have for a month prevented the distribution of diesel and gasoline. This has resulted in crippling businesses and hospitals.
And South Korea is imposing its first unilateral sanctions against North Korea in 5 years, in response to ongoing missile tests. It comes as Pyongyang fired another missile into the Sea of Japan on Friday morning. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Global wildlife populations have fallen by nearly 70% in less than 50 years. That's according to the latest study by the World Wildlife Fund. Its Living Planet report has assessed 5,000 species of birds, amphibians, reptiles and fish worldwide and mapped how those populations have changed over the decades. They're now calling for immediate action to halt what they call a nature and climate crisis. Tanya Steele is the fund's chief executive.
It is a severe warning that we are facing both a climate and a nature catastrophe. And ultimately, it's driven by human activity, which has continued at pace in converting so much of the natural world, whether this has been through construction, but actually largely the way in which we're changing the natural world in terms of converting land for food and for agriculture. Importantly, world leaders have been missing in action despite dire warnings over repeated years, and we need them to step forward and put in place an action plan before it is too late.
She says there is a very, very short window for action, and while conceding that the war in Ukraine and other international developments are siphoning away the attention of many world leaders, she says the evidence of the impacts of climate change themselves speak volumes about the need to give the issue immediate focus. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
FSN is an independent source of news for TV, radio and digital networks worldwide. You can find more of our minute-by-minute updates on Twitter. Follow us there at Feature Story. And we have a wealth of audio and video stories from our global news bureaus on Facebook. You can find us there by following Feature Story News. Stay tuned for further updates right here. But for now, that's the latest Feature Story News. William Denzelo reporting.
Delighted health insurance executives gather in an outdoor coliseum to watch a patient battle cancer. And a self-conscious flasher is fully clothed under his trench coat. This is the Onion Week in Review. While stressing that they would absolutely never consider doing anything of the sort, German leaders quietly admitted this week that they were pretty sure they could carry out another Holocaust if they ever truly wanted to. Quickly noting that the Holocaust was an atrocity that should never be repeated, no matter how easy it would be to do so, almost all members of the German parliament discreetly conceded that with their country's dominance of Eurozone GDP, pulling off the unthinkable genocide would not be the least bit difficult.
I'm just saying, hypothetically, that we very easily could do it. I mean, we definitely have the infrastructure, and the concentration camps are still standing.
In other news, a so-called Christian has an erection. A new study finds more children are growing up in single-parent households. And a real-life Nancy Drew traces the source of her HPV.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live. We're kicking off the third hour of the program. You can join the show and bring in whatever you want. The number 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. We did a little digging during the break. Chris, you said the house across the street from you here in Keene.
I was mistaken about one thing, though. Apparently, it actually has. I still don't understand how that has 3 bedrooms in that place.
It's tiny. It's 1,400 square feet. So they're probably not the biggest bedrooms. Probably 1 master and 2 really tiny ones would be my guess.
I'm wondering if it's like a basement bedroom or something, because it doesn't look like that house could be more than 1 bedroom.
Could be, but you had said it was gone from like 40,000.
No. I said 50 or 60,000. You keep lowering my number, but I was way off. I was about half of what it actually was selling for.
But it's still a big jump. We did pull it up. It sold last, according to the property records in town, in 2012. For $118,000, and then sold again for $270,000 in 2022. So it just sold this summer.
Right.
That's more than twice.
Yes. So one of the things I also want to point out is I didn't know what the price was selling for previously. Mm-hmm. I only was guessing based off of other houses. So the condition of the house inside may have been better than I understood.
Could be.
I figured it was probably the lowest, cheapest house you could get like a couple of years ago, and those I thought were running at like $75,000. Maybe it was more. I'm thinking more like 2016, not 2000 because prices probably still went up, just not as much as they did in the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, there's been a huge run on people buying homes here in New Hampshire, and this last year has definitely been the seller's market up until the last few months, where we've seen the Federal Reserve raising interest rates, and that's translated into higher home mortgage rates, and that's translated into fewer buyers in the home market because now people are giving it a second thought. There was like a craze for a while there where everybody was jumping in. There were bidding wars. It was going insane. And now that rates are, I think, over 6% last I heard for home loans, and they're likely going to continue to go up. It's been a turnoff for some of the buyers. Some people were, realtors have said that they've had buyers who were on the hook, who were ready to buy, and then when they saw the new rates on the mortgages, they got cold feet and said, nope, I'm out. So that's resulted in homes staying on the market longer. Prices are probably going to, we don't know what's going to happen, but prices could come down if things really start to cool off. In this marketplace,
I suspect they are. I think people are having difficulty now, actually, in this area selling their homes. So
really,
it's what I'm hearing. But maybe it's the maybe it could just be the properties too. So, and people asking too much. Remember, because if you're asking $100,000 more than what a house is worth, because of
you're not going to get it.
Yeah, you're not going to get it, and you're not going to sell. So. And I will say houses that I was thinking would be worth like 300 max, have been selling for 400,000 or 500,000. People have been asking. So,
yeah. Keep an eye on things. Zillow's a good site. There's some other ones up here. NNREN is another one that I looked at many years ago. So if you look around, you'll find keep an eye on the market to give you an idea of what's going on out here. Of course, it might be a good idea to rent before you buy, just to kind of get a feel for the neighborhoods and the places that you might want to live. Try some different towns out for size. But definitely come on up and check out New Hampshire. If you're a libertarian, if you're a voluntarist, if you're a liberty-loving anarchist, why would you want to be in a place where you have no chance of success? Whereas here, as we were talking about at the very beginning of the show, you weren't here for this part, but I was talking about the incredible level of media coverage that we receive here in New Hampshire. We have multiple media, like outside media in Keene right now reporting on what's going on here. International level stuff is going on, and
we had 2 just tonight at our little crypto event, and we had 2 different groups. 2 different groups. One had 2 people, another had 1. Although he's with others, but they weren't there.
Yeah, and this happens it's not uncommon to have media up here reporting. We've had the New York Times, we've had the Boston Globe in recent months reporting on the Free State Project. There was another story today that I was just reading. I forget what story that was, but it was like Vox.com reporting on New Hampshire, and the Libertarians got a mention. And we're a real force up here, and no other libertarian movement can even come close to the level of attention that the libertarians in New Hampshire are able to gather and the influence that we have over the political system here. Somebody pointed out, I think it might have been the Free State Project Twitter account, that in other states, the Democrats fight the Republicans, but in New Hampshire, the Democrats fight the Free Staters.
Yeah, it's so true.
That's literally what it has turned into this year.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
I'm amazed at the publicity that we're getting. There's 2 different documentaries that are being produced right now involving Free State
that we know of.
Maybe 3.
No, there is what were the 2 you were thinking of?
I was thinking the Free State doc and the Crypto 6.
There's another
doc,
one,
but I think there might be a 3rd doc. But
Justin O'Donnell, who's a longtime Free Stater, he's personally writing up a new version of the 101 Reasons.
I wasn't aware of this.
Liberty lives in New Hampshire. So, for listeners that aren't familiar, in 2002, roughly, the people that wanted to have the Free State Project participants choose New Hampshire came up with a document called 101 Reasons to Move to New Hampshire if you're a libertarian. They came up with a PDF. It was really well researched, really persuasive. It's one of the reasons why I chose New Hampshire. I was one of the 5,000 early members who voted for New Hampshire above all of the other states. There was a ranking, so there were 10 potential states at that time. New Hampshire blew the rest of them out of the water. Like the other advocates for Idaho or Vermont or the other 9 choices, they tried, but they didn't even come close to the persuasive factor that this 101 Reasons thing did. And so then about 12 years later, Bo Davis and Vince Perfetto, a couple of early movers for the Free State Project, they got together and they put together a documentary film taking the 101 Reasons and turning it into like this rapid-fire 1-hour-long documentary. I mean, if you think about it, 60 minutes in an hour.
Yeah.
You fit 101 reasons in 60 minutes. You're at about 30 seconds, not quite 30 seconds per reason. So it goes fast. It's a really interesting documentary, but that thing is coming up on a decade old now, so it's getting a little crusty.
There's a the one I love was Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree.
Sure, I know.
Absolutely, I know you know, but not maybe the listeners don't know.
They
right?
probably don't. Yeah.
But yeah, I think
which just celebrated its 10 years.
It did, and I was gonna say that's also getting old, but I still think to
that
this
one's
day,
timeless. Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree is timeless.
Absolutely is. It's probably I think that was what sold me on the Free State Project, and it wasn't the Free State Project. It wasn't a documentary specifically about the Free State Project, but it was very heavily involved.
It was a documentary that only exists because of the Free State Project.
Exactly.
And it was also the first documentary by Free State Project participants. Bo Davis also edited that film. He was the guy that did 101 Reasons. So anyway, the long story was that it's been a decade, almost. It was 2014 that 101 Reasons came out. So in 2 years, it'll have been 10 years since that came out. And I think that they're trying to do it again. They want to do an updated version of the 101 Reasons physical document, so the PDF, and they want to do, because there's new things, right?
Yeah.
Like New Hampshire still has probably most of those 101 reasons. I'd have to review them, and it's been a while since I've gone through it. But so we still probably have the bulk of those reasons. But now there's things like marijuana decriminalization. There's concealed carry without a license. Those things didn't exist in 2002 when that document first came out, and they didn't even exist in 2014 when the movie came out. So there's some new things that need to be added. Some of the political success stories that we've seen happening here in New Hampshire. So he's working on that list. They're going to do the text version first, and then they're going to work on turning that into a new version of the movie. So I'm guessing it's probably going to be coming out close to when 2024 would be my guess.
I'm crossing my fingers on the new version. I wasn't as big of a fan of the old version. It wasn't that it was bad. I have a feeling it's going to be done, and it's going to be even better this time around.
I hope so.
I have a feeling, and we'll see. But because again, as you said, that was a very old documentary. So I bet you he's got his skills have probably gotten better.
I've heard Bo is involved. I don't know if he's going to be the editor this time, or I don't know who the behind the scenes full cast or whatever is at this point. It's too early to say. But that one is in production. But you can still check out the old one because it is still really great and worthy of a watch.
They're all worth watching. Yeah.
101reasonsfilm.com. If you're a liberty-loving person and you haven't seen it, or Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree, you really owe it to yourself to sit down and do that. There's more coming up here. It's Free Talk Live.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
Inflation, a sidelined labor force, and ever-increasing interest rates. It's the perfect storm for pushing the U.S. economy over the edge. Savvy investors are diversifying into gold and silver with BullionMax.com. You can buy direct from BullionMax.com without talking to a salesperson, and your precious metals will ship fully insured directly to your home. Free Talk Live listeners can now order one of BullionMax's most popular products, the Goldback. Now in stock, but supplies are going fast. To get your Goldbacks, go to BullionMax.com/FTL. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Uncovering the secrets and exposing the lies. That's what the readers of freedomsphoenix.com get every day. freedomsphoenix.com, constantly providing the information, the real news about government policies, and the real relationship we all have with the coercive government. The real condition of the economy, innovations in technology, breakthroughs in energy, health, and computer science. Learn the truth well before it's admitted to in the lamestream media. The corporate media, nothing more than distributors of government propaganda, but now there's an alternative. freedomsphoenix.com. Constant news updates on the issues that affect your life in the most important ways. With liberty and property under constant attack, freedomsphoenix.com provides the understanding behind the propaganda, and it encourages the participation of its readers. Go to freedomsphoenix.com. That's freedoms with an S, phoenix.com. freedomsphoenix.com. The revolution between the ears has already happened.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live. Phones are open, and you can join the show. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. If you've worked or lived at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988, and you've suffered from cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, you might be entitled to compensation. There were contaminants in the drinking water that might have led to those diseases. There may be some deadlines involved in filing, so you don't want to wait. You want to give this number a call to see if you or a loved one are eligible And this may be available, by the way, to family members of someone who suffered from these diseases. But you should talk to the folks over at this number. It's 888-918-1037, and they'll help you out. That's 888-918-1037. If you were at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and you've had a serious health issue, money is already set aside at 888-918-1037 to see if you can qualify for this information. So we're going to go to your calls and thoughts. We go to Sarah. She's in New Mexico. Go ahead, Sarah.
Oh, yes. Thank you for taking my call.
Yes, so what we do.
This election, they're going to be looking for people that are camped out in front of the drop-off boxes. So this is one of the things that they're going to watch, along with voter intimidation. So what's going on is they're intimidating people from dropping off their mail ballots. So
hold on a second. Are they mailed or are they dropped off?
Okay, these are the new we just got these, the drop off boxes.
Mm-hmm.
So when it's getting too late and it would take 7 days in the mail, like my mail ballot, they would just drop it off at these boxes.
Okay.
And so there are people that are camped out overnight and to run people off from dropping them off. So
are you sure about this, or are you just speculating that could be happening?
Okay, so this has been going on in other states, obviously, and that's why they're precautionary. So, but I have never heard of this happening in New Mexico because these drop-off boxes are quite new. We've only started it maybe like.
Well, didn't you call and tell us before that the drop-off box is located at the city clerk's office, and that's the only one that there is?
Well, for if you want to drop it off early, and there's a camera in front.
But that's only there's just to clarify, there's only that one box
for right now.
Okay.
Right now, but
okay. It doesn't sound like that you have the problem then, Sarah. So why are you calling about this if it's not actually happening?
Okay, they're speculating that this is going to be a future problem.
But it's not.
Also
if you're at the city clerk's office, if that's where the box is that people have to drop off their ballots there's not going to be some glowering guy carrying a club trying to, scare you away from that box because it's right there on government property. There's all kinds of government goons around to make sure that there's no one there besides government thugs to intimidate people or not.
Well, I'm talking about on election day. They're going to open up more boxes. They're going to have more of these drop-off boxes. As I don't know if they're going to have 10 more out middle of different places. But you know what?
Well, what you're talking about would be like threatening, right? Like I don't know if the term would be criminal threatening, but if you're trying to intimidate somebody, that's already a crime. So like are you saying that they're going to be hiring police officers or having police officers standing at these boxes to make sure that there's no one around to quote unquote intimidate you?
They're going to be doing some patrol, and then we even have a hotline, voter intimidation hotline now. So if people are trying to vote and they're being intimidated,
okay. Here's what you do,
voting,
Sarah. I understand that you just got you and your roommate just got your first internet device, right? You've got a smartphone now.
But you know what? I'm not concerned about my ballot. I've already mailed out my ballot yesterday. I'm just bringing this up.
Okay, but I'm going to bring up the solution for you, okay? Even though you're not concerned about it, you're bringing up something that I don't think most people should be concerned about. But that said, if you are worried about somebody trying to intimidate you, whether it's somebody... By the way, the most intimidation I ever have comes from government employees at voting locations who are trying to intimidate me into doing things like not recording video, or you can't wear a T-shirt, or whatever their stupid rules happen to be at these voting precincts. But if you are encountering someone who is trying to tell you that you can't drop that off here, or that you better not, or whatever it is they're saying, all you got to do is walk up with a video camera rolling. And then you will get that person's face on video, and if they say something intimidating to you, you have the evidence at that point that they are committing criminal threatening against you, and then you can go to the police if that's a thing that you want to do, because then you'll have evidence against that person. And the odds are they're going to keep their mouth shut if they're smart, because they don't want to be on video threatening people over voting. Because that sounds like a felony to me. Like,
yeah, that's not a good idea.
Like criminal threatening on its own, probably a bad thing, but threatening somebody to keep them from voting, I bet you if there was a misdemeanor criminal threatening, I bet that would ramp it up to a felony level in that case. So there you go, Sarah. Oh, but what?
Threat has been... Hello?
Wow, you're here. What?
Are you still... Yeah, the voting threat has been done with the African Americans ever since they had the right to vote. You heard about them white people standing at a polling places, beating them, assaulting them. This kind of thing's
I've not heard of that.
On.
No.
Well, historically,
no, I'm talking about when they first got that.
Oh, you're talking about decades ago?
Right, that's correct.
We're not talking about what happened decades ago. That doesn't happen today.
Well, you know what? Similar things are kind of happening. Even if they're not,
I've never seen it.
Figure that you're Republican. They've done it in this state, a couple of elections, driving around with the Donald Trump flag, and they would just run people out if they knew that they were
people
Democrats.
out.
I mean, they've done that. I mean, not.
What do you mean run them out?
You know,
polling place.
Sarah,
they've done it here.
Done what? Driven around with a Trump flag? What are you saying
Sarah,
that they did?
There's undoubtedly discrimination going on still to this day, but I am very doubtful it's happening at the polling places.
What are you saying they did with a Trump flag and a truck? What are you alleging?
That's threatening to her.
Reported. The people. I mean, they had threatening people keeping away from. I'm talking about 5 years ago. The Trump Republican voters running the Democrats out of the polling place. They've done this before. That is the reason why we have a hotline. That is the reason they're going to keep track of looking.
Just get a video camera and pack heat, and you'll be fine. Thanks for the call.
I think the issue is that she sees, and a lot of people on the left see, anybody who holds up a Trump sign or wears a hat. What do the MAGA? I think they call MAGA hat. Mm-hmm. They see this as some sort of like violence, and it's not violence.
It's insane.
It's absolutely insane. I get that you're offended by it or whatever, but that doesn't mean that they're trying to intimidate you or it's violence or any of that. I'm not saying that somebody might not be trolling you. That certainly happens, but that's not the same thing as the violence that some of the people who are reacting that way violently to that are actually doing. You don't get to punch somebody just because they wear a MAGA hat, even if the MAGA hat is offensive.
Yeah, and by the way, the thugs are on both sides. I'd like to just point that out. The left has their Antifa thugs that have absolutely intimidated people at protests and things like that. So again, the best thing you can do is just defend yourself, and whether you want to use a weapon or hand-to-hand combat if somebody attacks you, but you also have the ability to record a situation and get that on the record. Anybody that's saying something to you that's threatening, you ought to have that on the record, especially if it's a cop. More coming up.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm William Denslow. President Vladimir Putin says there's no longer a need for massive strikes on Ukraine. Russia has launched a series of attacks on a number of cities over recent days. Putin now says the country has other tasks. Russia, meanwhile, is warning it wants to revise a landmark deal between Turkey, the United Nations and Ukraine that's meant to ensure the possibility of exports through the Black Sea. Moscow says the agreement, which it hailed at the time as a success, is not equal and not being fairly implemented by all sides. Stuart Smith has more from Moscow.
The deal needs to be renewed in mid-November by all parties, but Russia says it has two main complaints: that guarantees to Moscow that were meant to make exporting its grain and fertilizer easier are not enough. There aren't any direct sanctions against Russian grain and fertilizer exports, but Moscow claims other sanctions on shipping insurance and financial transactions are causing issues. The Russian president also claims the grain sent from Ukraine is not, to a large enough extent, going to the world's most underdeveloped countries, a complaint Turkey's president on Thursday said he agreed with and would seek to change ahead of renewal. The Kremlin says it submitted its concerns to the United Nations.
The UK Prime Minister Liz Truss has defended her position after her credibility was questioned by journalists at a press conference in Downing Street. Truss sacked her Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng and U-turned on a decision to cut taxes after facing mounting criticism from MPs. Laura Macon-Isherwood has more from London.
On Friday, she recalled her Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng from a meeting in the United States and removed him from his post after facing repeated criticism over their mini-budget tax-cutting plans. In a televised address, Liz Truss said she had acted decisively and that she wants to deliver a high-growth economy. Jeremy Hunt, a well-known MP with significant government experience, now becomes the new Chancellor, a man Truss claims shares her ambitions for the country.
The UN World Food Programme is warning Haiti is facing a humanitarian catastrophe. Close to 5 million people, that's almost half of the Haitian population, are facing hunger. Jody Jacobs has more from UN headquarters in New York.
Malnutrition, gang violence and a cholera outbreak. And it's getting worse. The UN's World Food Programme says about 19,000 people in Port-au-Prince alone are facing catastrophic hunger. And the situation in all of Haiti, it says, is close to breaking point. Haitian gangs have for a month prevented the distribution of diesel and gasoline. This has resulted in crippling businesses and hospitals.
And South Korea is imposing its first unilateral sanctions against North Korea in 5 years, in response to ongoing missile tests. It comes as Pyongyang fired another missile into the Sea of Japan on Friday morning. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. The phones are open if you want to join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. Ian and Chris in the studio tonight. You can join us online anytime you want. Just head over to freetalklive.com and enjoy the features there. We have our chat server. It is a Matrix chat server, which is open source and self-hosted. It's federated. It's connected to other Matrix servers around the internet, so you can interact with people not on our server, but elsewhere if you'd like. But also, of course, on our server. In fact, there are some rooms you can only get into if you're on our server, if your account is with our server. So go to chat.freetalklive.com. and you can get the step-by-step instructions on how to get connected, and you can then create your own chat room if you want to. There's dozens of them there, though, by the way. Oh, and we did, thanks to our server admin, we finally got rid of the Ukrainian spam channels. There was this fake-ass, quote-unquote, feature that Matrix had turned on. I guess it was accidentally turned on in our system, or maybe it was like a by-default thing that we didn't know about. But it allowed people to come in and essentially spam our channel list with channels that weren't even on our server. So there were a bunch of these Ukrainian channels that were in there, and it was cluttering up our server list. But thankfully, our server admin was able to figure out how to deal with that, and those things have been removed at this point. So you've got a much cleaner list of channels from which you can look through and join the ones that are interesting to you. And if you want to create one, there's a topic that is not being discussed, and you want to have your own channel for that, you can do that. That's one of the coolest things about Matrix is it is from the bottom up as far as organization of channels. It's not from the top down. We don't tell you what channels you can join. You decide for yourself. So check it out at chat.freetalklive.com. Let's go to Major Payne. He's on the line in Michigan. Go ahead, Major.
Hey, Ian. Hang on. I'm going to take you off speaker.
Always a good plan. Definitely appreciate it.
Right. Or better?
Yeah, it always improves the quality. Thank you, Major. What's on your mind tonight?
Well, I don't know. I just heard the last little bit of Sarah's call in, and then you guys was talking about the MAGA hats and whatnot. And these are just haters.
Mm-hmm.
I just bought I paid $5, $4.95 for a whole episode of Steve McQueen, Wanted, Dead or Alive. It was an old Western, black and white. And this woman in one episode that I just got done watching, her husband busted out of prison to regain the $50,000 he gained in a bank robbery. And Steve McQueen was the bounty hunter, and he was on him, and the old lady knew it. So she shook Steve McQueen, killed her old man, claimed the $1,000 reward. And then Steve McQueen cornered her in her bar just at the end of the episode. She says, "Why'd you do that?" He says, "Well, there are so many men in New Mexico, and there's so little money." I wonder
That's
how
what she said? That's what she said? The woman?
That's what she said.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So New Mexico sucked back then is what you're saying.
There's places where people aren't supposed to live. Like the Ute Indians, they were the only cannibalistic tribe in the whole continental United States. And they were driven into the worst place because everybody hated them.
Wow.
Because of who they were.
The Ute Indians?
They figured out ways to kill you for 2 days while you watched them eating you.
What was the name of this tribe? Ute?
The Utes, as in Utah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh.
I'd never heard of them before. I don't live out that way.
Yeah, they were horrific people. They would tie you against a trunk or a post of a tree, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then splay you bow-legged and build a small fire right between your legs.
Oh, man.
And as you slowly roasted, they would cut pieces of you off, cauterizing
oh, my
veins
God,
as
Major.
You would not bleed out. It would take 2 days. You would watch them eat you.
And are you saying they moved into New Mexico?
No. I'm just saying
okay,
the
they
whole
stayed in Utah?
West back in the day was horrific, dude.
Yeah.
It was horrific.
So New Mexico hasn't gotten much better is what you're saying.
Yeah, evidently. But anyway, the mega hats.
Yeah.
You know, these people are just haters. And everybody, hell, they invented crackheads, or they invented heroin so the crackheads would have somebody to look down on. Everybody wants to pee upon somebody else's head, think themselves above it all. And it's ridiculous.
Thank you.
With the internet and everybody in their magic rectangle, good God, put your nose in a book, learn something.
That's good advice, Major. Thanks for the call tonight, man. I appreciate it.
I think I'm going to refrain from peeing on people's heads.
Yeah, let's not talk about that.
Yeah.
Going on here from this story there's a website called DNYUZ, and they just copy word for word articles from the New York Times and put them on their own website. So the story is originally from the New York Times, and it's about young people, adults under 35. It says here that they've stopped playing it safe. Instead of banking as much of their pay as they used to, they're saving less, spending more, and pursuing passion projects or risky careers. Nimarta Narang, who's 27, says she was prudent about almost everything until the end of last year when she had an epiphany. She says, "I don't want to spend my life being so careful and cautious." For most of the coronavirus pandemic, she couldn't travel to see her family in Bangkok. When she finally made the visit, she was struck by how much she'd missed her mother's 50th birthday, her grandmother's funeral, her sister's engagement, her father's beard going gray. She says, "Coming back to the U.S., I realized I needed to do things differently," she said. So one of the things she'd always wanted to do was live in New York. She packed up everything in her LA apartment and made the move back in March. She also took a new approach to her finances. Before COVID, she said, she was putting about $2,000 into her savings account every month. Now it's half that amount. The rest goes towards a costlier apartment, which we were talking about, I think, off the air about New York.
Sounds like an early midlife crisis.
Yeah, I think they call it a quarter-life crisis now. Evenings out with friends and small indulgences she would have denied herself before. She said, "I wanted to use my savings to have a life experience. Visiting home made me see how much life I had missed." And so the point of this story is to talk about young people having this epiphany, if you will, and deciding to save less and spend more and live more in the moment. What do you think about that, Chris? Is that
Seems
a good
like
plan?
A really bad idea. I mean, it's one thing if you have the money to spend, once you account for things like, I don't know, savings or, just the necessities, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you haven't even, got a little bit of money for a rainy day fund, I mean, what are you expecting? Are you expecting everybody else to take care of you when things go bad? That sounds
Maybe
like,
they are.
I mean, that sounds like socialism. That sounds like a terrible plan. It sounds like, it sounds like you're going to end up, in harm's way when Social Security collapses and, all sorts of, other stuff happens, like the economy goes south. And
I have to wonder how much of this attitude against savings has to do with the money itself becoming worth less over time. Because in a place like Venezuela or Zimbabwe or some Weimar Republic, Germany back in the day, where you're dealing with crazy levels of inflation, we're not there yet in the U.S., but when you are dealing with crazy levels of inflation, it's insane to save, right? At that point, you spend it as quickly as you can and turn it into something that's not going to lose value instantaneously.
I think the problem is that's not what that's not what they're saying, right?
That's not what they're
saying,
not conscious of that.
They're not saying they're investing it. They're saying that they are basically
they're blowing it.
They're blowing it.
Right.
And that's, I think it's the blowing part that's a bad idea, not necessarily, obviously, yes, you should always be. It doesn't matter whether or not, how do I say this? You have a high interest rate or not. I think you're still going to make more, especially when you're younger, if you invest it. It probably hurts more, as you get older and you want to move your assets from risky investments to, other types of less risky investments or even dollars, right? That's who it's gonna hurt the elderly, those high interest rates.
We're gonna continue. There's a little bit more about this. There's a study that asked young people between 18 and 35 about their savings habits. We'll share a little bit of that coming up, and your thoughts are welcome at 603-283-6160, 603-283-6160. You're welcome to weigh in with your thoughts and tips. It's Free Talk Live. Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it. And once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world. So I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here. And I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market. Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people like passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. Moments remain. If you join us here, you can. In the remaining moments, it's at 603-283-6160. That's our call-in line. Here tonight, it's Ian.
And Chris.
You can join Chris, as I mentioned earlier, on his show. It's Freedom Decrypted. Happens every Saturday, about 5 o'clock Eastern Time. It is a tech show with a liberty viewpoint. And if you like those two things, you're going to love Freedom Decrypted, so be sure to check him out. He's got video archives going back for the bulk of 5 years, archives on audio format, and a podcast that you can subscribe to in your favorite podcast client at freedomdecrypted.com. We're talking about savings, and young people apparently, if they ever had the habit of savings, some of them are walking away from it to some extent. According to a New York Times article, this actually came out a little earlier this year. I've had it in my show prep for a little while, and you're a financially responsible kind of guy, Chris, so I figured you'd be the right person to talk to about
I'd like to think so.
Yeah, I think so too. I am as well. I've always been pretty frugal and pretty good at saving things.
I wouldn't call myself frugal, actually.
Really? I
spend quite a bit, but I also
you splurge.
Well, you know what it is. I spend a lot, but I also invest a lot. So
okay.
I combine the two, and it works out. But if you just spend and you don't invest, and you don't work
invest
hard,
in a business, right? Like you're spending money to make money.
I do, but I also
you're not going out and buying a Lamborghini.
This is true. I drive a 2007 Honda Accord with
how many miles?
Over 200,000 miles on it.
Right. My 2007 RAV4 has like 180,000 miles.
Yeah, my guilty thing is probably more in making donations to other worthy projects and causes that I believe in. And the other place is food. I like to eat out.
All right, fair enough. You know what? You should spend on things you like and enjoy. And that's one thing I don't disagree with this young lady on is like if you're not living your life and all you're doing is, you're being this aesthetic and you have no enjoyment whatsoever, then yeah, you are doing it wrong. You should be able to put something away in savings and still be able to enjoy going out from time to time and doing something fun or whatever it is that you enjoy doing. So there is a balancing act going on here. And it sounds like, though, the circumstances are changing for these people. So according to a study by Fidelity, they found that 45% of people aged 18 to 35, quote, don't see a point in saving until things return to normal, unquote.
which is an interesting thing to say. It's like, well, things are so crazy. Why should I do anything that I used to do the same way? Is what they're saying, basically.
That first of all, that assumes they return to normal.
Yeah.
I mean,
right. What will that mean?
And
how will you know?
Right. And what happens if things go, even further south, right? Like
then what do you rely on? What do you lean on?
Right.
At that point?
I think that's the wrong attitude to have. If anything, you should be cutting back on your spending so that you can save. I mean, obviously you might not be able to save more, but if you could save more by cutting back more, you're probably way better off doing that than spending what you got.
In the same age group, again, 18 to 35, 55% of respondents to the survey said they have put retirement planning on hold. For some, like Miss Narang, the isolation of pandemic life triggered the decision to enjoy the moment. Financial consequences be damned. For others, the motivation has come from worries over climate change, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, domestic political instability, soaring inflation, through-the-roof housing costs, and a topsy-turvy stock market. Hannah Jones, a stand-up comic in Denver, said she used to save almost all her discretionary income. She was a thrift shop regular who refused to pay for a Netflix subscription. Now she has become what she calls a financial nihilist, meaning that she puts significantly less into her savings account. The shaky state of the world was on her mind. She says, quote, "I'm not going to deprive myself some of the comforts of life now for a future that feels like it could be ripped away from me at any point," she says. In her stand-up act, Ms. Jones, who's 27, has a reliable joke where she says, quote, "I'm not saving for retirement. I'm going to spend my money now while we still have a supply chain at all," unquote. It's a quip that changes with the headlines. On some nights, instead of supply chain, she simply plugs in the catastrophe du jour. The anti-frugal mood is pervasive. Hannah Fuller, who's 25, says she was once enthusiastic about saving for the future. After having taken financial aid while attending a private high school and college, she was assiduous about managing her money, making sure to max out her Roth IRA each year. But now, she said, her mindset has shifted. It started when she was living in Portland, where she grew up, in Oregon during the wildfires of 2020. Quote, "Being surrounded by the smoke, you could just really feel the doom and gloom," she said. She said further, "It felt like we were living in The Martian, like we were living in an airlock, trying to keep the smoke out of our apartment. Going to these places you visited as a child and seeing them burn to the ground, it makes wanting to build new things very hard." So it sounds like we're dealing with a case of depression here, in addition to fear about the future, and that is translating into poor financial habits.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't. Yeah, this just seems like just a disaster waiting to happen. It's so hard. Like I can feel sympathy for people who, like, through no fault of their own, end up in dire circumstances. But when people end up in dire circumstances because they're basically making
made the wrong choices,
stupid decisions, like financially or otherwise, or they have 3 kids and they're 20 years old or what, it's like you can't afford that yet,
Right.
Or it's like, okay, I have 1 kid, but 3. I mean, it's like there's a certain you have a brain, use it.
Some experts say the spend it now attitude isn't particular to young people in 2022. According to Brad Klontz, financial psychologist in Boulder, he says every generation has had an apocalyptic view of their lives. Apparently, he says during the Great Depression, many people lost their trust in banks. Boy, we need to have that happen again.
Yeah.
At the height of the Cold War, the fear of nuclear war affected the way many young people planned for the future. And during the 2008 financial crisis, saving for a home felt pointless for many. Mr. Klontz said, "We're not wired to save, we're wired to consume. If you have an exciting vision of the future, those are the people who aggressively save for retirement. If you have an apocalyptic vision of the future, why would you save for it? Of course you wouldn't." And he's making a good point, and what I think really is important here is that the government and their government schools have been inculcating children with fear for as long as I've been around. This whole climate change thing, we've talked about stories before about how young people who are, in high school or just graduating or in college or whatever have been hit so hard for so many years with this climate change fear-mongering, they literally believe the world is going to end in a decade.
I mean, this is like
it's crazy.
This sounds like suicidal almost. I mean, look, if the world is coming to an end tomorrow, you should be investing in things that you can use, like food and things to make food, and shelters and things like that can withstand the storms if that's what you think is coming. Not going
out and partying or whatever.
Yeah, not going out and partying and giving up all hope. It's like, look.
Well, that's a rational view, Chris, but these people apparently don't have that.
Even in the worst possible circumstances of, environmental damage and, total catastrophe, it doesn't mean that, there won't be anything left. It just means that you have to spend more money building your home, constructing it to higher standards that costs some more. Maybe the home will be smaller, but that doesn't mean that it's not gonna. I mean, you might die because you didn't do those things, but for the person who saves and acts more rationally, they're going to be prepared. And this just seems like suicide to me.
Here's another example, and it's on the issue I was just talking about. Danilo Jimenez, who's planning to go to graduate school to study environmental policy, said he has put saving for retirement on hold in favor of spending that money on weekend trips and moving out of his parents' home to live with roommates in Brooklyn. He said, who is 25, said, the idea that I'm going to put money away into an account that I can't access until I'm 60, that's 2056, he said, who has worked as a youth soccer coach and a carpenter's helper. Quote, a lot of things are going to change by then with respect to climate change. He literally believes the world is going to come crashing in.
That is a little bit different, though. It's a little bit different. I mean, at least if I understand.
You mean locking the money away?
Yeah, because what he's saying is he's not, rather than putting it into government accounts that he can't take money from without having a huge cost to him, he's going to put the money into some sort of investment. It sounded like, so that is a little bit different.
I didn't hear him say that.
It wasn't.
It said he's spending money on weekend trips.
I misunderstood.
Yeah, he's blowing it.
Okay, never
but no,
mind.
I agree with you. Having money more accessible, like putting it into cryptocurrency or gold or silver, would be a better way, in my opinion. I'm not an investment advisor. This is what I would choose to do. Putting it somewhere you can access it.
Yeah, spread it out.
Not in some money manager's account.
My recommendation would be to spread it out into a different thing. So if one thing fails, you're not
it's
gonna,
not game over.
Yeah, it's not the world.
See you tomorrow night. freetalklive.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our